Guys, you're still on mute, just so you know.
Hi, everyone. So I was introduced by Alice. My name is Rufat Imam, and I'm the Rape Group New York City Fellow at Rebuild by Design. This is actually my first ever community board meeting, so it's very interesting that I'm presenting at my first one. And a little bit of background is I joined Rebuild by Design in September 2023 to help lead their Rape Group New York City work. Right after I graduated in the spring of 2023 from NYU Abu Dhabi, where I studied social research, public policy, and literature and creative writing. So I'm very, very new to the environmental world, but I'm learning a lot through this work. And just it's okay.
Can you help persons say next, like, tries to do that old fashioned way?
Just to give a quick overview of today's presentation, I'll be going over Rape Group New York City, its background, kind of the working group's process, and then our final recommendations, and then really bringing it to the community board and what actions the community board can be taking in joining Rape Group New York City. And just a quick introduction before we get started on Rebuild by Design. So Rebuild by Design is an organization housed at NYU's Institute of Public Knowledge. You might have heard of us, but we're a very small but mighty team, all women currently. And we like to think of ourselves as a process that kind of really brings together different expertise, different knowledge, from local to international, to really tackle our most multidimensional problems. And most often we find ourselves working in climate change. And the challenge of why I'm here today, and I think why you're all here today, is really climate changing. And one of the challenges we're facing is that New York City's facing increasing amounts of flooding from rain. And New Yorkers are being confronted with this new reality where our city's infrastructure is not up to date to be tackling this issue. And it really needs a systematic and comprehensive approach to addressing it. And our overall goal in addressing this challenge is to really adapt to living with more water. And so through a lot of our Rape Proof New York City work, we kind of have the same that came out, which is that we want to turn the jungle into a sponge. And how we started doing that is right after Hurricane Ida, we put out an anthology of ideas. And that was really a collection of 20 essays from experts, both local and international, really looking at the ways that New York City could be addressing this challenge with increased heavy rain and what are the different aspects that we could be doing. So whether it's our subway system, turning to blue and green infrastructure. And then we really use that report to start thinking about how can we actually envision this comprehensive strategy and how would it look like if we took a systematic approach. And we worked together with One Architecture to put out our report called Towards a Rape Proof New York City. And it really just gave us visuals into how to think about it. It kind of clarified what are the impediments to getting there. And that was published in 2022. And then more recently, in 2023, we published with Bramble a business case study, really looking at a cost-benefit analysis of if New York City were to take a blue-green approach, how would that look like and how would it look? And our findings from that report are that, among other findings, if New York City were to integrate more blue and green infrastructure, for every $1 New York City spent, we would get $2 in return. So there's obviously a lot of benefits to turning into this. And so from our research stage for Brain Proof, we really just, it came out of it that for this approach to happen, and for us to reach our goal of moving more water and turning the concrete jungle into a sponge, we first have to start with the most socially and physically vulnerable communities. Two would be to create a massive investment in multi-benefit green and resources. And when we say multi-benefit, we're looking at economic, social, physical, what are all the benefits that we need to be getting from this new opportunity. We like to think of every challenge as an opportunity to actually better our communities holistically. And then three, where we cannot go through the prioritize local benefit solutions. So it's like, for example, thinking about what already exists in our city and how can we turn that into a multi-benefit solution. That was kind of like the first phase of Rain Proof, as I like to call it. And then the second phase was the Rain Proof New York City working groups, which really took that research that we did and took that challenge that we recognized and acknowledged and turned it into action. And so we worked together with New York City government, and then some nonprofit organizations that you see here. So the organizations we see here are actually making the steering committee of the Rain Proof New York City working groups. And that includes DEP, it includes HRO, MSCJ, and then the nonprofits that we worked with were Regional Plan Association, Green City Forest, and Center for New York City Neighborhoods. And then our goals for this Rain Proof New York City working groups process was for us to actually tackle this challenge and for us to holistically and systematically take a good approach. We want to have to adapt to living with water through a collaborative process. New York City is very, very complex. It's one of the most diverse cities on the planet. It requires a collaborative process for us to be looking towards the future. Two is to really create a deeper understanding of the intersections of heavy rainfall with other issues that already exist in New York City, whether it's the housing crisis, whether it's looking at other climate-related challenges, social intersections, and then really utilizing all these stakeholders that we're bringing together and utilizing the expertise and the different experiences that exist in New York City together, and then creating this innovative process that we put together into a Rockefeller model of community and government collaboration for policy design. And then ultimately, the goal is to really just create a shared ownership of this challenge among all New Yorkers, and then whether it's your city or different stakeholders. And to give a little bit of background on how we decided on the challenges that we were tackling for the Rain Proof New York City working groups, after the Tour de Rain Proof report that we put out in 2022, DEP actually reached out to us and said, we want to work through these impediments that you put out in your report, and could you convene some stakeholders into a symposium? And so in March 2023, we had a Rain Proof symposium, specifically working groups, where we brought together 100 stakeholders, and that included government agencies, it included local expertise, international expertise, and we brought them together to really work through these impediments and how do we actually bring that research into action. And the challenges that we identified that would be the most important for New York City to actually start thinking comprehensively and strategically and to address this challenge is the first one is really managing the increased heavy rainfall holistically. So how can we shift all of New York City's policies and priorities to create comprehensive plans to mitigate heavy rainfall? Two is really looking at housing and housing mobility. So what does an equitable buyout program look like for New York City? And three is really thinking about every New Yorker has a role to play. And the challenge is how can we build capacity among communities, the private sector, and community-based organizations to share responsibility and manage it. It's a very, very innovative process and really had a lot of different goals for it. And we kind of recognize that when you bring together so many stakeholders, there's a lot to be learned and there's a lot of alignment that needs to happen. And it was also a unique opportunity to kind of create a transparent and accessible model that could be replicated. So kind of how we structured the work groups to kind of fit all our goals, but also be very intentional, prioritize equity, and really just kind of take this as a new approach and a new opportunity is one working group was dedicated to each challenge or topic area. So working group one was dedicated to managing rainfall, working group two was dedicated to housing mobility, et cetera. And to kind of make it transparent and collaborative, each working group was co-facilitated by a New York City agency staff representative and a NGO partner. So those are the people you kind of saw in the steering committee. So for example, working group one was co-facilitated by DEP and Regional Plan Association. And then the decisions for each working group were made together by the co-facilitators and by these multi-stakeholder groups. Then we really wanted it to be time bound. So we could really have clear timelines and goals and see where the vision was going. And so this process ran from January 2024 to June 2024. We actually just had a Rain Proof symposium, which I'll get into a little bit more in the presentation. And then we wanted it to be interdisciplinary and really take into account all the different expertise and experiences that exist in New York City, and the different agencies that had to take part in this challenge. So one of the challenges that we had kind of recognized while we were doing our rank report was that New York City agencies work in silos, and not together. And so we really wanted this to be an interagency process. And we also wanted to integrate just the different lived experiences from New York City. And then because it's so many people being brought together, it definitely needed to be coordinated and needed to be aligned. And so that alignment was done by the steering committee and just overall coordinating by Rebuild by Design and One Architecture. I can tell you it's not a lot of meetings that people being very confused, but it was a really great learning process, I think. And to kind of just show you rank New York City by the numbers, you can really get a vision for that process. I'll first start with the outreach we did. We did targeted outreach to over 1,000 people and we had over an 8,000 person list that I can tell you in my first month of me working at Rebuilds, I was putting together everyone that could have possibly had any interest in addressing this challenge through that list. And we received over 300 really, really amazing applications. And so through a 2-week process, the steering committee really sat and read through every application and tried to build as much of a diverse expertise and experience working group for each challenge. And overall, we selected 52 people. These are non-agency people, by the way. Selected 52 people, 49 people accepted, and we have representation through all 5 boroughs, 12 neighborhood organizations, 21 city, state, and national nonprofits, and 10 plus academic private philanthropy. For city agencies, they ran through their own internal process, and so only one city representative from each agency would be represented in each working group, other than co-facilitators. And overall, we had 14 city agencies represented, 1 state, and 1 federal. In terms of the rank group process internally and kind of how do we align with all of that, because we were bringing so many people together, it needed a lot of communication. And so personally, I sat on most of the working groups meetings. So I really took that back and created communications to keep everyone aligned. And we kind of make sure that each of the working groups knew what the other working groups were working on, just in case there was an overlap of work. So one of the overlaps that we had kind of seen emerge was communication came out of every single working group as something important to focus on. We also kind of took the fact that there were so many people with different experiences and expertise and put it and reflected that back by doing a lot of site visits. So for example, we visited the buyout programs in Northern Beach and Staten Island. We also visited the new with cemeteries, for green infrastructure. And then we did a lot of events just for the working groups because we recognized we were creating a network and we really wanted it to be an authentic network that could be taken beyond the process. And we had like informal gatherings like mixers or just have presentations like from FloodNet to the working groups. It was really based on whatever the working groups felt their work move it along. And then through that process, we recognize that there's a lot of interest in rainproof and addressing rain as a whole in New York City. And then that heavy rainfall was an issue beyond New York City. So we started a public event series with One Architecture. So a little bit separate from Rainproof New York City's working groups process, and just with One Architecture. And we did outreach again, so over 8,000 people, and we held 5 public rainproof events. That includes book talks, kind of looking at Amsterdam, looking at Copenhagen, and how they're addressing that issue. We went to the New York Botanic Garden. We had over 1,000 attendees across all events, and these are group attendees. I made sure to go over if there were any repetitions. And then to make the rainproof New York City process more transparent, we actually hosted 2 public feedback sessions where we had working groups present their drafts recommendations before they finalized them in June and had public feedback from people they thought we were going the right way. We had around 100 attendees for each public session. And then we concluded with the public symposium where the rainproof New York City working groups got to start got to publish their recommendations for the city and for around the city. And we had over 260 attendees. And this is just everything that I told you in a high level timeline. So you could really visually see it. We started our call for members in November and we concluded in June. And I really just wanted to highlight how the challenges / topic areas changed after the working groups got together and really started their work, and just to kind of show you how a process can change how we address and approach challenge. So challenge one change is how can we effectively legalize states in New York City to equitably reduce the risk of having rain add value to the communities. Challenge two changes into how to determine the parameters and best practices in the design of a voluntary ethical buyout program. And challenge three changes into what tools, resources, and knowledge the New Yorkers need to become rain-proof. And this, I want to be fully transparent. These are very, very high level look at the recommendations that came out of the working groups. You can read the full recommendations on our website, which I'm going to link at the end of the presentation. What came out of work group one was they really broke down their recommendations into 3 themes. So each theme had recommendations under, but the 3 themes were 1, learning to live with water, 2, integrating green and gray infrastructure, and 3, improving and expanding natural systems. Recommendation was that for the New York City to equitably create a buyout program, they would need principles to kind of bring to when designing this program, and the principles are make the program voluntary and well-informed, make it community-based and neighborhood-specific, 3, housing-centered and housing-focused, equitable and renter-inclusive, 5, environmentally restorative and integrated, and 6, permanent and adaptable. And the one that I really want to highlight, because I think it impacts all of us in the room today, is working with threes, which is really dedicated to having to take responsibility of this challenge as a New Yorker. And one of it, the first recommendation was integrating rain-proof into community programs, educate on extreme rain mitigation, prioritizing outreach on rain-affected population, and ensuring resources are accessible, investing in and equipping community leaders with resources to understand rain forecasts and impacts, and 4, promote cross-sector collaboration. And we really view the working group process, including in June 25th, not just as a conclusion of the working groups, but the beginning of really building out a rain-proof New York City movement. That's where we will kind of come in. And the commitments that Rebuild by Design has made is 1, we're committing to growing the rain-proof movement. 2, continuing communications, so keeping all the working groups and people that are interested in forming the city's project, and sharing new ideas that come out. 3 is collecting a resource for a public rain-proof New York City library. So while we were working on the rain-proof work, we recognized that there's so many resources already out there. There's so many tools out there. There's so many programs that already exist. We just don't know about it, and they're not all in one place. So we're really trying to do that now by creating a public library. So if you have any that you know of, please feel free to add to it. 4 is continuing the rain-proof event series, and 5 is just monitoring the implementation of the recommendations that we just went over. And how are we creating a rain-proof movement? So to start at our symposium, we did an interactive session where we kind of asked folks at the end of the day through Mentimeter and through writing on raindrop stickers and sticking them on a banner, what are their commitments to rain-proofing New York City? What are the actions that they're taking, whether short-term or long-term, to join this? And the themes that emerged are 1, educate and engage in the community, 2, fostering collaboration and networking, 3, developing and implementing resilient infrastructure, 4, advocating for supportive policies, 5, committing to personal climate actions, and 6, pursuing ongoing research and learning. And I just want to highlight some of the things that came up. We have a lot of raindrops and a lot of people that put in what their commitments are. These, I think, are just holistic across kind of whether they're integrating it through their actual work, policies, or just specific actions they're taking. So, for example, I pledge to take care of 3 rain gardens and to advocate for green jobs in frontline communities. Designing a rain-proof toolkit for community board organizations with the working groups. And kind of where that brings me to today and what are the actions that community boards can be taking. These are just some of the actions that we put together in the Rainford New York City recommendations and what community boards could do. So one is fostering collaboration. Since we all have a role to play, how do we encourage and create opportunities for community members to engage in Rainford's efforts? Another one is engaging with city agencies and developers when they come before the community board. So asking how city and non-city projects will address increased rainfall and prioritize green infrastructure. Another one is to pass a resolution that supports Rainford New York City recommendations. Utilizing existing programs, like we said, while we worked with Rainford Free, for example, there's so many tools and resources that already said how do we really leverage those programs to promote Rainford New York City recommendations. And I really want to highlight report flooding to 311. That's something that we learned is really, really important because it actually ends up affecting the policies that affect us. And the last one is engaging in outreach education to really ensure that our community is prepared. Whether it's educating people on Rainford New York City recommendations and efforts and the challenge ahead of us, developing and distributing communication tools for before, during, and after a storm. We have a lot of resources for during the storm, but not so many for before and after. And really building a strategy to check on the most vulnerable communities in your neighborhoods during the storm. And that concludes my presentation for today. And so this presentation and all of those actions that we're taking are linked in this QR code. So we're building out a toolkit for community boards and how they can really take action for Rainford New York City. And so this kind of includes kind of things that we want to know about bringing the Rainford New York City recommendations. And I really want to turn it back to you. And what do you think, which resources do you think would be most helpful for you to have in this toolkit as we build it out? Whether it's through your role in the community board or through your role as a director as a whole.
Thanks very much. Oh, that's great. Really great to understand the process and looking forward to hearing more about the product, maybe even other to put in. And it's great to have this huge team of resiliency experts and folks to speak a little bit about how they're creating these policies. I will ask when you're doing your presentations, I know to Jordan and everything and all, but maybe you can acknowledge if and how. You know, for me specifically, I'm delighted to know that we can begin this conversation, and it would be great to understand what came out of the June symposium, what policies were really highlighted. It probably won't happen tonight, because obviously I don't have a 10-minute Q&A, but that would be really helpful, I think, to understand how this gets integrated. I have one question, if I may. It might be on other people's minds. How does this, if at all, were you influenced at all by the city of Yes? Did this have anything to do with your plans? Did you talk to DCP and about this?
I think Amy and I would know a lot more. I came in more when the Rainford New York City was starting, but I know they definitely were talking about city of Yes. But we really view Rainford New York City as its own process. To really kind of think, how can we take a systematic approach that takes everyone's considerations? I know we wanted to work in alignment with city programs and initiatives that already kind of exist. The city of Yes is definitely one of them, but not.
Well, I argue that you're right, it wasn't 100% in there. In fact, some of the proposals seem almost potentially contradictory, but, okay, I will open it up. I promise very few Q&A here, like a 10-minute or even less now, if that's okay. So any from my committee members, or is there any something that you want to?
One very easy question. Which state and federal agencies participated?
We had FEMA and the state by. I figure it out.
While you're looking, where in the recommendations is the infrastructure and technology and transformation, where does that fit? It didn't seem apparent in that page at least.
It's a lot of working work. So I just gave you the very, very high level things, but working group one was really the one that was looking, was mostly because of like engineers, for example. They were really the ones looking at programs that were system. I realize them in really building out rainproof conditions, but they wanted to align it under themes that could answer the risk components and the value components of community residents. Because they really want to look at it. So if you look at our website, there's a lot more right now.
Is there any forward-looking research part of this?
Yeah, so that's what we're in the stage right now, really thinking about how do we build forward from here. Recommendations, how do we ensure that we implemented, but also thinking about just looking forward into next steps. So that's being written right now. So if you have any recommendations, we'd love to hear that. Yeah. And
Yes.
the New York State one is the New York State Citizen Policy.
All right.
So anybody else who's thinking
So let me just make sure we have the rule, make sure everybody on the committee got, hands. Okay, Catherine, take it away.
Hi, I just did there.
Again, this is Catherine McKay, who's our former chair.
Was to see everybody. I listened to some of the retail design presentations online and attended your June 20th event, which was great. I just wanted to congratulate you on it. And the commissioner was speaking about how much was actually the importance of the Parks Department in terms of resiliency, and what was the final conclusion of how much the Parks Department was actually slashed?
I don't know. But I know that there's a conversation that's been happening with the working groups. And then it kind of really came to the process of how much there was slashing. But that's why I think that's one of the recommendations where I get into really fun parts more. Parts more, but I don't think there was included in that. But I can ask.
Do any of our other leaders in the resiliency world want to comment on this plan or your knowledge of it or your sense of how it integrates into what you're doing for resiliency on Peninsula?
Yeah, I can speak for DEP. So DEP is, I'm not in the group that manages the stormwater. I do coastal, but I can tell you that the efforts from this process are now starting to inform our strategic plan, which is going to be written this year. So it's been a really direct correlation. And then there's that balance between recommendations and what we can actually put into a budget or strategic plan. So trying to figure out, what can we move forward with in the next short-term, long-term, 10-year strategic plan versus what are the big ideas that really require the socialization and the political will behind it to advance it. So it's a matter of finding that balance. But I think I've just been in the meetings hearing people talk about green group. I've not been able, unfortunately, to attend any of the meetings, but I think it's been extremely positive, endeavor, and I'm considering the amount of community engagement I think too, which is very helpful as we try to develop the strategic plans.
Thanks very much, Lily. This Deputy Commissioner of Resilience, for those of you who don't know, Lorraine Farrell, who's actually come out to this meeting on a hot night to see what's going on
That's why we chose this.
Extra points, as is everyone in the room. Okay, so we're gonna move on, I think, if that's okay. I'm sorry we don't have more time, but I know you're gonna be back. Absolutely, rest assured. And I'm not sure who's the lead on this, but the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency Quarterly Update, which seems to be falling into you, Diana Sweetheart, our former Director of Plan here at CE1 also. Are you gonna present?
I will say hello, everybody. Diana Sweetie, formerly of CD1, now EDC Government and Community Relations, here with my EDC colleagues in our project teams to represent EDC's role in LMCR, but it represents a much larger and much more comprehensive plan. So I will put it to my colleague Jordan from the mayor's office.
Hi, everyone. Jordan Salinger, Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice. I've seen many of you over the years, so you should be familiar with this meeting. It is for the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resilience set of projects. Tonight, we will not be getting into any one project in great detail. The intent is to really give high-level updates across all the projects. I know we say that every time and we end up having 100 slides. I think today we have 49, so we're sticking to it. But it's really just to give you a sense of the breadth of work out there. And then we leave some time at the end, obviously, for Q&A to get into detail on the projects. So we do have some slides.
Yep. Can everyone online hear Jordan?
Yeah, so far we can. I can.
Yes, so can I.
Thanks.
I guess, yeah, while we're pulling this up, I know Lorian has already had a chance to introduce herself. I know maybe last fall or last summer came to you talking about our office, and one of our priorities for as part of Plan YC was embedding resilience kind of across the city, and in particular, making sure that our operational agencies are leading the charge. And so one of our goals was back to hire Lorian, and so she is here in the flesh. And I know she's already talked a little bit, but I would give you a,
Actually, I didn't have it on.
oh, you didn't talk?
Well,
Yeah, I guess before we launch into it, just want to give you a moment to introduce yourself. I know we are, as a city and BPCA, very excited to have her, and the leadership she brings, because, this is kind of a shared responsibility across the city family, but at the end of the day, we're gonna, need to have people that are operating the gates and kind of leading the policies moving forward. And that's the intent of Lorian and her position, but yeah.
Well, thanks, Jordan, and good evening, everyone. I sort of kind of stuck in there, but, so as Jordan mentioned, the Bureau of Coastal Resilience, it's brand new. He's part of a Plan NYC initiative to start a new Bureau of Coastal Resilience that serves to integrate all of the activities going around across the city for our 520 miles of coastline. But also, as Jordan also mentioned, to place the new coastal resilience infrastructure assets in an operating bureau, because now we're about to take over the first set of flood protection gates for the east side coastal resilience within the next couple of weeks. And those gates need to be oiled and maintained a few times a year. Hopefully, we won't have to deploy them in an emergency anytime soon, although we know this is a heightened activity year for hurricanes. We are really praying that this does not result in storm surge in New York City. But it will be eventually our team that is responsible for getting out and pulling all those gates shut, and not just on the east side, but everything in Lower Manhattan, eventually Red Hook. And, the other part of the work is to start to think about what's the next era of coastal resilience projects that we need to start investing in. So we've been 12 years post Sandy, a flurry of activity, $15 billion of federal infrastructure money that has been, actively planned, designed, and now many under construction. But there are areas in the city that weren't hit by Hurricane Sandy, and we need to start thinking about those areas as well. We'll also be coordinating with the Army Corps on the HATS project, and what is the New York City response to HATS? What are the components of that project that we like, and what are the components we don't like that we'd like to see changed, and how do we influence that? But I think apart from the operations part, I think the biggest benefit of this bureau is to break down some of those silos that you talked about, that it's really hard for agencies to get together. We're such a big city and everybody is so busy. So we'll be that coordinating body as well. And I learned about this meeting tonight when I was talking to Jordan about the need for the bureau to get out and let everybody know we're here, but also to talk about the upcoming hurricane season. So I didn't come to give a presentation today, but I will come back at a future date and talk about in more detail some of the activities that we're thinking about in terms of operations and getting ready for hurricane season, along with Benson.
We really welcome that. We had the Office of Emergency Management come last month to talk a little bit about interim measures, of which, alas, there seems to be none on the west side of all of Logan. So people should be here. Yeah, additional perspective on what do we do? I think that's fantastic. And also Yeah, the sort of anti-silo aspect of this is something this community board has really been pushing for, the sort of global understanding of the holistic goal. So when we heard about this, here we thought, this is our hope. And, tonight, we're gonna see, Battery Park City, and it's crossing over to Tribeca and the Melville, the federal, state, and city, all of those joint, and what we can do to make that a really happy moment that could then continue throughout the city as to how all of these agencies work together. So, here again, sorry, Jordan, take it away. Thanks again.
Well, thank you, and as I mentioned, we'll be doing a little bit of popcorn. We have our city agencies, our state agencies in the room. I'll do kind of a brief, high-level overview of where we're at in Lower Manhattan. So you can see here, we'll do the brief update on LMCR overall, and then get into each of our projects. We do have a very brief update from DOT for their Battery Park underpass work. I know they've come prior meetings, but it's been a bit of time, and so I wanted to make sure that you have an update on their work as well. So you can see here the LMCR map. Is a number of projects on our right side, starting purple, BMCR, a $350 million project. City capital and HUD dollars that is advancing through construction right now. Seaport Coastal Resilience, our newest effort as part of LMCR, hosted its first public meeting a couple weeks back. Within that geography, and this is where the map starts to get a little confusing, is the kind of yellow call out. That's the financial district and Seaport area. Where we have determined that we need to expand into the water to provide protection. Unlike all the other projects we're going to be talking about today, all the other ones are funded capital projects. This is the FIDI Seaport project is in design. We hope advancing towards construction, obviously on a little bit longer of a time frame. But just worth calling out that difference. It can be a bit confusing jumping around from capital projects to planning and design. The next effort, Battery Coastal Resilience, joined a number of you for our groundbreaking a couple of months back, a $200 million project raising the Esplanade, and then our work with Battery Park City Authority. And there are two projects, the south that is under construction and the northwest that is zooming along through design. Add them all up, $1.7 billion worth of funded capital projects. Oh. So, so I feel like this slide is important and really illustrate itself as we go through these presentations. It's just the kind of difference of scale and challenge, even within Lower Manhattan, even within projects abutting each other. There's kind of differences in the amount of space, utilities, timeframes, and so you would think two projects sitting next to each other and end up looking exactly the same. That is not the case. That is not the case in Lower Manhattan. That's not the case, the rest of the city. Really requires extensive community feedback, requires an understanding of the utilities, once again, the kind of space we have available and the kind of broader public realm goals. And so in the left corner there, you have the interim flood protection measures, really about buying down risk. This is something that's in place in the Seaport, in parts of two bridges. Below you have the Hugh Carey tunnel gate that is in place. You have the BMCR project that is under construction. You have below that you have the battery project that is also under construction, and then a couple different images of the FIDI Seaport plan. One in sunny day, one in future flooding conditions. And so once again, there are different threats, there are different risks. The wave action is different at the tip of Manhattan than it is even in two bridges. And so once again, it just gives you a sense of our challenges and sort of taken action that. And so here is an update on our progress. The top three projects, as I mentioned, well into construction, moving forward. That's BMCR, South Battery Park City Resiliency Project, and Battery Coastal Resilience. The Northwest Battery Park City Resiliency Project, I know they've been meeting with you every month or more, but they're moving through design and will be heading towards construction in 2025. Seaport, once again, the newer effort that is very early in design, and I think that's very important to note. This is the moment where feedback is important and can really shape what that project starts to look like. And then obviously mentioned the Vidac Seaport Master Plan, a longer time horizon. Once again, does allow for more space to hear from all of you of what you want that project to look like. And so with that, I will pass to the Battery Coastal Resilience team, then update on network.
Thank you, Jordan. Hi, it's Kathleen Chan. I'm with EDC, the capital program, and been working on the battery coastal resilience for quite some time. My colleague, Patrick Klein is here. He's from Hunter Roberts Construction Group, who's overseeing the construction of the project. So we're happy to come back here again, tell you what the progress is. We really enjoy you walking the site. We welcome you to come back again. So we'll start with the first slide. I need to try. Okay. Okay, so this is a drone shot of the progress of the Walker construction right now. Patrick will be walking us through all the details of where we are right now, but as you can see, there's a big barge out there. We actually did the sheet piling. I won't get into all the details, but that's what Patrick will be doing. But this is a great drone shot, and it's done with the help of the Battery Conservancy. And so we're hoping that along the way, as we do the construction, we can start to continue to have these wonderful shots of progress. Just a reminder of where we are. We finished up design back in last year. We did win an Envision Platinum Award. It's one of the only awards in New York to achieve platinum for an infrastructure project. So this is a big, amazing, status for our project. So we're happy to announce that. The phase one, we're currently in phase one. We're anticipating to complete phase one by July of 2025 and start phase two soon after that. And the next slide will give us the details of the project. And this is a rendering of what the wharf and the repair will look like when we're done for actually reconstruction, not the repair. So Patrick, I think we'll get into the detail.
Yeah, so we wanted to just come and give everyone an update of what we've done since we last met. So over the course of the last few months, we've completed our salvage and demolition of the wharf from basically the East Coast Memorial over to Pier A, which is our first phase of the project. During that time, National Park Service demolished their west tent and transferred their operations over to their temporary east tent. And then last month, we drove our first two test piles, and we're now in the process of setting up to do some static load tests so we can start our full production piling towards the end of this month. We're also looking to mobilize some of our upland construction so we can start taking some more fill out in preparation for our lightweight fill program, and then start on all the upland drainage improvements while we're working on the waterfront. So kind of hitting both the upland and the water side at both times. All right, next slide. So we have some photos. So on the left here was us salvaging all that Stony Creek granite, which is now in storage and being ready to be reprocessed so it can be installed in the final condition of phase one. The right is March of this year, where we were starting our kind of upland demo, scraping of the site, in preparation of our sheet pile work. Slide. So on the left is the continued excavation, so we were taking down the fill down to the existing platform and also excavating back behind the platform. This is part of the kind of the build out of the battery. Originally, there's a lot of blast rock and riprap that we weren't going to be able to track the sheet piles through. So we had to clear a full depth cut to be able to make that happen. So then on the left or on the right, in May, we completed our sheet pile installation. You can kind of see on the left side of the right picture, that's actually the existing bulkhead still in place. So we drove the sheet piles behind to create a temporary waterfront before we move forward with the demolition of the structure. So on the left here, you can see us, that's the final section of the structural wharf. You can see the seawalls out. We're demolishing the platform back in on itself and then loading it out into the barges. And then on the right is the first of our 2 test piles that we drove in the last month. Slide. So these are 2, basically a month apart of the progress we made over the last month. So the top one is June 12th, where we were still in the process of doing our structural demo. And you can kind of see that pink purple line is the existing wharf face. And we had been cleared basically the west or the east side of the project, and then working over on the demo on the west side. And then a month later, you can see we had completed the structural demo. We started building false work for our piles, and we're in the process of doing our 2 load tests. So, and then we wanted to show some progress on some of the salvage work we've done. So most of the salvage we're doing is Stony Creek granite. On the left side is, you kind of see one of those pieces that was had the old bench brackets in them, a lot of buildup of dirt and debris on them. The right side is actually that same piece. We patched a hole, done some repairs on corner conditions, and we bring it back to almost like a brand new state. I think everything sounds pretty incredible. And then on the right, we've got the wood sea rail that is going to be gone back in. And you can kind of see the progression that it's made. So the far right of that picture is what it looks like in its existing condition when we took it off. The middle is us sanding it down, cleaning it, and getting any imperfections off. And then the left side of that photo shows kind of the finished condition that everything will be reinstalled. All oiled and everything brand.
That's great. What's the percentage of reuse in paper?
So it depends on the material, but there were some metals that salt there, real there as well. But I think the most what we were seeing was 17%. The wood, I think, out of the 1,000 feet that we salvaged so far, we lost about 6 feet. Yeah, this tropical hardwood is pretty resilient, and we have some very talented people working on the, see there, bring it all back. It's interesting.
Yeah, not to mention this wood is, it's extended, right?
It's no longer allowed to be procured. So we're doing everything we can, and we're working with the Battery Conservancy to use some attic stock from 25 years ago. Hopefully restore full wood top roof.
That's amazing.
We have some very, very good people on the job.
Next time we come, we'll show the, in terms of the stone that we've taken off the base of the battery. Now we're reusing it on the upper slip area. So always very exciting. We just got those photos.
Yeah, working for some very good mock-ups, so
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have some more information in this time. So the next 2 slides are just what the kind of the current state of the park with all the ongoing activities, our staging area, our existing working area. Let's see the South Ferry Park. resiliency project. And then the upcoming DOT field house work. So this is what we expect the battery to be like for really a year, for another July of next year. And then as we're getting into our second phase, we have the DOT work, and then we'll be condensing our staging area, still having some of the stored reused material, but then focused over on the area. So these are some signs of which, if you've been down the battery, hopefully they've been helpful and informational. We, working with Conservancy, put up some 140 light poles worth of banners, kind of directing to the Statue of Liberty and Statue Approved Loading Area, as well as giving some information on the park. We've wrapped the construction fencing and informational signage at our staging area, some directional signage by the ticketing at Castle Clinton, and then some kind of hidden sign or signs that hide the fence, make it look like you're not sitting next to a construction site in the boss, which turned out way better than I thought it bumped in on us. And then we put up some more signs like information on closest public transportation and some history of the battery, which the Conservancy did a really good job helping us pull this all together. Next slide. So then we had our groundbreaking on May 6th, which I think some of you were there, Mayor and everyone. It's exciting to really have a official start to the project. And then as Kathleen mentioned, here the Envision Platinum Award for a lot of work with the design team and the public agencies involved. And then we're working a lot of logistics to do things in a much more, not only green fashion, but a lower impact to the environment, taking material out over the water and making trucks off the road. It's kind of nice. Okay. Then we have Henry, are you there? We got our community liaison from CARP on.
Yes, I'm here. Can you all hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Henry Hoffman, and I work at CARP Strategies as part of the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency Battery Coastal Resilience Construction Community Liaison Team. It's a mouthful, partnering with Hunter Roberts. We're responsible for communicating construction impacts to the local community and resolving any construction-related issues. We just recently released the June edition of the Battery Resilience Project newsletter that you can check out under the Battery Coastal Resilience section of the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency website, which is linked on this slide. The newsletter covers project news and updates, construction progress, and construction notices, which includes a summary of upcoming construction work as well. And we will be releasing our next quarterly newsletter in September of this year, with one to follow in December. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please navigate to the contact link at the bottom of the linked page in the slide and reach out to info@batterycoastalresilience.com. And if you'd like to be added to our mailing list, there's a link within the contact page that brings you to a form when you can add your contact information. And thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, right, so for where we are right now, so if there are any questions?
Did we try to?
Just so you know, I have my hand up, but I'll wait my
Yeah,
turn.
I see, Christine, I'm just looking to Jordan as to how you want to approach this. Do you think that's?
If that's possible to hold them to the end, or?
Yeah, I think we can manage. Is that okay with the committee?
Great.
Thanks very much. Terrific. And congratulations on the addition.
Yes,
It's a
thank you.
really, I just have one quick question. Just what part does the Conservancy play? Do you think it's a very large role in terms of the success of this project?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I think so. Pushing it, especially like helping us with the materials, and they had a huge stock, not huge stock, they had some stock on those handrails and they gave them to us, so that.
I had a feeling.
Yeah.
It's great. Shout out to Warrior Price.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, more on that, I guess, after you get her done with it. So just write down your questions.
That's right, I think it's on the couch.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me all okay?
Yes, could you introduce yourself?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Desiree Gazzo. I'm here on behalf of the Department of Design and Construction to discuss updates for the Brooklyn Bridge Montgomery Coastal Resilience Construction Update. I'm joined here tonight with my colleague Ethan Kraft, who's in the room in person, who just started on our team. And we gave a more in-depth presentation at the last quarterly meeting, and we just have a couple of updates for you this month. So for the project status, and I guess just to give a quick overview of where we are for anybody who might be new, the BMCR project is between Montgomery Street and the Brooklyn Bridge, primarily between South Street and the East River underneath the FDR Drive, the elevated FDR Drive. We have broken the project status areas into kind of 6 general areas, as you could see here on the map. So in area 1, which is closest to the Brooklyn Bridge, we have the Interceptor Gate building foundation and flood wall construction underway. As we move down towards the Manhattan Bridge along South Street, we have just some Con Ed utility work between Robert F. Wagner Place to Market Flip. And then the utility work continues on South Street between Pike Slip to Montgomery Street, and then water main installation work from Clinton to Montgomery Street. The exciting news that we have to share tonight is that we started to receive the flip-up gates, which are the major flood protection component of the BMCR project. So the contractor has been working on the flip-up gate installation, as well as the flood wall foundation construction and micropile construction underneath the FDR Drive. And we have some photos to show you in just a bit. And then down in number 5, closer to the Pier 36 area, we have flood wall foundation excavation and utility work. And just a reminder that the pedestrian entrance to Pier 35 is closed from South Street. So here in the photos, you can see underneath, as we mentioned, the FDR Drive, the contractor installing those flip-up gates. We have a couple of renderings in the next slides, but the first picture here is the contractor bolting the flip-up gates. They're in segments. So as you can see, the kind of the lines that are in that picture on the left. And then on the picture on the right is a close-up of the flip-up gate hydraulics. This is from the end of last month. However, just this week, they have started testing the hydraulics, which will be the main operational procedure for opening the gates. So here are a few renderings of the flip-up gates. To the left is the water side rendering, so that's facing the East River, and then you could see to the right the deployed flip-up gates during installation. And then on the next slide, this is the dry side, so this is the community-facing slide, and again, the rendering to the left, and then the deployed flip-up gates to the right. And then just as a reminder for our resources, I'm not sure if Marcia was able to make it on to the presentation virtually, but Marcia Guido is our community construction liaison. She's often out in the field. Her phone number and information is here. For BMCR and for the Eastside Coastal Resiliency Project, we do joint tabling within the community. So if anybody is interested in having us come out. We also regularly attend CB3 Parks meetings every other month, and we have on-site signage, etc. And we've been updating the website as well. And that's our presentation for tonight.
It's tough to ask questions. It's phase here. It's all right.
I respect your feelings.
I respect yours. Okay. Moving along, who's next?
Hi,
Oh,
everybody. Buddy Comida, Director of Capital Projects and Resiliency Operations at the Better Perceived Committee. I am joined by Angie Howard, our AVP of Construction, and you really tell our AVP of Science Design, and also you all know Ms. Cordone, our VP of Public Affairs and Communications. So one thing update on the South project, including some photos, which we haven't shared, I think, in a while, of in-progress photos we've taken the past few weeks. And just give a recap of sort of the last couple of weeks and where we are with our Northwest projects. We've been to a few times this year on our Northwest projects, but we'll just give sort of a brief overview of where we are right now. So this image, people are pretty, this image, people are pretty familiar with. This is the rendered version of the future of Wagner Park. This area is currently under construction. We've been under construction on the South project since approximately last March. So on the top, these are the floodwall micropiles that are being installed next to the Museum of Jewish Heritage. On the bottom, this is the Pure Plaza and Battery site demolition work that's been ongoing. There's a lot of utility relocation associated with this work, which is why you may have had some experiences with nighttime work along Battery Place, but also just sort of work in the street in general. Next of the top photo shows the partial progress of our pavilion. You may not be able to see it in the room as well as you probably see it on the screen, but this work is ongoing. We probably even had a more up-to-date photo that we could share from this morning to show that work. And on the bottom is the installation of the rebar for the pavilion. If you've seen it from the street, you see that the building is going up pretty quickly. And so, you know, we're still progressing really well. I think we're looking for a mid-2025 opening, which is great. We're still on target for that. So we're really excited that the work has been progressing. The weather has been on our side this whole year in terms of work. Said that now, and I probably jinxed us, but for right now, the weather has been on our side in terms of getting a lot of work done, even in sort of the winter and colder season. I don't have a photo of, which you might have noticed, is that now we actually have, instead of our very, very long DOB construction fence that we had running along Battery Place, it is now wrapped through the ArtBridge program, which works with New York City DOB fences. We were able to put, it was an artist selection process. We worked with City Parks and the Battery Conservancy and EDC on the Battery section of it. And then on the Wagner Park section, we internally went through the sort of submissions and made a selection. So I don't have a photo of that, but I'm happy to share it after the meeting. I completely forgot since our Wagner Park fence went up last week. So as always, Katie is our community liaison. I know that Katie has been to the service cabinets and given updates. She's always available and reachable. You always know how to reach Nick if there are other concerns that need to be addressed. But we're always looking, I think, to improve, and I always speak for Andrew, to improve on site if there are complaints about noise or anything like that. We always try to hear about them so that we can make improvements on site.
I just want to remind everyone in the public that the Battery Park City Committee at CB1 handles a lot of the complaints that might come in or concerns and stuff. So I would recommend that you go there as well if you have concerns with this presentation. Thanks.
The Northwest Resiliency Project, which the way to turn about. This is our alignment that runs from roughly South Cove around First Place all the way to Tribeca, as Alice mentioned. We used to call them regions. We're sort of trying to sort of continue that, but also start naming them for the parts of the neighborhoods we're actually covering. As we move into sort of this next phase of design and eventually construction. And these areas, obviously, you know, we are currently at 60% design milestone. We continue to have conversations with agency partners and stakeholders and are refining our design and making improvements to it as we get feedback from them. So that work continues. That work is always ongoing. We have a lot of stakeholders in this project, as I'm sure everybody knows. These are some rendered views for illustrative purposes. If you came to our public meeting that was on June 20th, you saw some of these. These are some of the Route 9A Tribeca ones that we showed. This is also materials from our June 20th meeting are available on our website, including the flyer video and the slide deck that we presented. We are working on also getting the questions from that meeting up on our website in about the next 2 weeks or so people can see them. But this is the North Esplanade on the left and a rendering of Rockefeller Park. As you know, the lawn of Rockefeller Park is going to be open throughout construction. We'll be doing work around it
but we've heard a lot from the community about keeping the park open during construction. And this is the area around the ferry terminal and also the area around Brookfield Place. And these are probably not very new since we've shown them a bit over the past weeks and months. And this is the south neighborhood and the South Esplanade areas. We talked about it both here and I think as well with the BPC committee. And then just some engagement milestones to date. We've had a lot of them. This is a lot of text and I apologize on the screen in advance for this. But we've done a lot of outreach on this project because it is not a small project, as we always talk about. There are a lot of stakeholders, both agency stakeholders. I think we're dealing with about over a dozen agencies on this project who have oversight and ultimately approval of parts of our project, as well as all the buildings in Battery City, all the buildings in Tribeca, small businesses, condo boards, co-op boards, and the management companies in the building. So a lot of stakeholders. Our last public meeting, as I said, was June 20th. And in terms of future engagement, we have a lot of future engagement coming up as well. We have our draft environmental impact statement hearing coming up in September. We're hoping to publish our draft EIS in mid to late August. As soon as we have a clear date, we'll come back to board and let you guys know. Also to make sure we publicize the comment period. A public design commission review is also expected to be in the fall. We still have some temporary open space concepts we're looking at that were talked about at our June 20th meeting. We're still looking for feedback. We have an online platform to provide that feedback. Nick can provide the link. I don't have it off the top of my head. We are continuing to advance design of the pump station for this project in consultation with DEP. That work is ongoing. We meet monthly with DEP to talk through progress pump station design. We are still continuing to meet individual buildings. We are still continuing here on CR quarterly updates. We have continued conversations with agencies, probably more than they would like sometimes, about agency permitting and approvals, but we continue to have those. And we're also, we did have a conversation in early June about construction, sort of where we are. We're going to be continuing that pre-construction engagement as we move into 2025 and have a clear sense of what staging and phasing will look like, noise and impacts adjacent to buildings, things like that. So you've not seen the last of us, even if you wanted to, you have not. But that's sort of where we are in terms of our project. For Seaport, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Robin, project manager for the Seaport Coastal Resilience Project. With me is Kathleen Chan and our design team. We're with EDC. We also have a design team, Elizabeth Thompson and Antoine Abigargam with AECOM and Ryan Walsh with MHA. So just originally to set the scene that the Seaport Coastal Resilience Project, as highlighted here, is a separate project from the Finite Seaport Climate Resilience Master Plan. We really are focusing on the Seaport District and the neighborhood between John Street and the Brooklyn Bridge. And we're designed to safeguard from immediate and future risks for sea level rise and tidal inundation, where the Finite Seaport job in the future is for coastal flooding. We're really focused on sea level rise. Before we get into the true design, we've made a lot of good progress so far over the past couple months since we last presented a few months ago. We're a lot of research and investigation, utility surveys, jurisdictional studies, regulatory investigations, and discussing with agencies. Additionally, we had our open house a few weeks ago, and we're going to gather all this information, and we're really looking forward to moving forward with design over this summer. And with that, we'll go on, and I'll lead it off to FHI.
So I think one of the things we learned when we introduced the project to the community board was some great advice about trying to concern.
Speak up.
Okay, sorry.
Just for that.
We're trying to discern between the master plan and the support project. We heard from this group that that's going to be a task for us to rise to. So we started creating some graphics in that way. This one just driving home that it's the tidal sea level rise, not necessarily this storm surge. And we're designing to the 2100 tidal flood 11. As Andrew said, we're in the very preliminary stages and gathering all information. We're breaking down those barriers. We have monthly meetings with many agencies and just having all input, including Parks, DP, EDC, and student team. So we're working to collect everything. We have the next two slides are going to be about the open house, what we heard, what we're going to take that out and try to.
Good evening. So on June 27th, we held our project kickoff open house at the Excellent School. It was organized as an open house style meeting from 6 to 8. So people came in, we had boards around the room, folks circulated, got a chance to speak one-on-one with project team members. The purpose of the project was really to introduce the project to the community, talk about, convey some of the distinctions that Andrew and Elizabeth just mentioned. But also, since it is early days in the project, really to listen to the community desires for the project and for the neighborhood. In order to get the word out, we developed a project flyer. It was available in 3 languages. We sent out an e-blast to project stakeholders and followed up asking to further distribute that e-blast throughout our networks. We also physically distributed the flyer at almost 50 locations across the project area, including businesses, schools, in public spaces, residential buildings. And not listed here, we also ran an ad in the Broad Street, which I know was effective. Some people mentioned it. For future outreach, one of the things that we heard from folks was that we're going to improve our online presence, make it easier to find information about the project and future outreach events, and utilize social media to a greater extent to really help get the word out there. So in those one-on-one conversations around the room, we got a lot of really great feedback, heard a lot of input on alignment and program design opportunities, discussion about Imagination Playground, the real desire to maintain the historic character of the neighborhood, maintain waterfront views, create social spaces, improved connectivity, a lot of discussion about cycling, pedestrian infrastructure, but also safety and sort of a hot topic for the interplay of bike lanes and all the activity there, as well as the desire for green infrastructure and green spaces and topics you see up there. We had a number of interactive boards where people put Post-it notes and marked up, what they would like to see. So this is an example. What would you like to see in the FPCR? It's a little hard to read in the room, but each of those dots in the project area is an icon that suggests somebody would like to see cycling infrastructure or accommodations for joggers, runners, congregation spaces, seating spaces, opportunities for planting, and provided lots of comments on how and where those things should be considered as we begin design. Elizabeth, anything else on this?
No, I think that's.
Then moving forward into the next step.
Yeah, so I think this is where we want to just reemphasize that we are in the early stages of data gathering and starting our concept designs. Hearing feedback is really important to us in every way that we can get it, so we can help inform along with the physical constraints on the site. So we're going to be back to the community board in the fall, and we're planning our next public event also in the fall.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Sandinez. I'm the Manhattan Deputy Borough Commissioner for the New York City Department of Transportation. Many of you are familiar with my colleague Kate Scherer, who's our Lower Manhattan Borough Planner. She's on vacation, so I was happy to attend tonight's meeting and see some of your faces. So looking at just a very quick general update of our upcoming work at the Battery Park Underpass, as well as the West Street Underpass. We are planning to complete some flood mitigation improvements at both openings of the Battery Park Underpass and West Street, which will include new flood doors, barrier construction, floodproofing to the ventilation shafts at West Street, and structural and electrical work and upgrades for the generators that exist there. At the moment, we don't currently have a timeline. We're going through our procurement phase, so we don't have a firm, start date to share with the group. But we will keep Community Board 1 posted as we move closer to that date. What we do expect is that the work will last about 24 months. Most of the work will be performed within the actual tunnels themselves, with some surface activities to be coordinated with the major stakeholders, parks, BPCA, and EBC. We're hoping to keep the underpass open during the daytime with some overnight closures to be expected. So we will have, our Lower Manhattan Borough planner reaching out when we have further updates to share on that start date. I should clarify too that this DOT work is outside of LMCR, a separate contract, and it will be completed by the DOT Division of Bridges. So any questions, complaints, those will be coming in through finalists.
The rest of the complaints.
Yeah. With that,
Erin Tao, the panelist, she's presenting on the Friday support. ERIN. TO.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
yes.
Yeah, welcome.
All right, my name is Erin Tao. I'm part of EDC's Neighborhood Strategies Department, working on the FiDi Seaport Plan. Tonight, going to be giving you all some updates.
Yeah, you'll need to speak up a little bit.
Okay, sure. So at this time, we don't have substantive design updates to provide, but we've been busy with some engagement work that we're excited to share with you. Next slide, please. So since we last came to you all, the team has been really busy with doing some engagement. We've really been focused over the past couple months on doing more in-person tabling events, as well as engaging the youth, children, and families of children. This is something that we've heard in the past. It's something that we really wanted to focus on more in this upcoming phase. So we have been attending various events hosted by Seaport Kids to provide some education on the project and build awareness generally of what has been happening on FiDi Seaport. Over the past semester, we've actually had a semester-long engagement with the Harbor School. We've been working with one of the teachers there on their senior capstone project, where the students learned about the FiDi Seaport project.
I can't hear her.
No, I know.
Hey, Karen, your audio's going in and out. Maybe if you're using like headphones, it's a little wonky.
Let me try unplugging this, see if it's on.
No, that's worse. Now we don't hear you at all.
Hello?
Oh, we heard the hello, not very loudly.
No. I think they're talking, we're not hearing.
Yeah, there's stuff in the fridge.
Alice, if she needs to log back in or out, what do you think about taking some questions to allow her time to fix her audio?
So last slide.
What'd you say?
This is our last slide, so I think folks get, we've been doing one.
Oh, this is the last slide for the FiDi. There's nothing else for FiDi Seaport?
We can't hear you, Claire.
Okay.
Can you hear me from the room?
Yeah, we can hear Diana.
We can hear Diana.
Perfect. And Erin was saying in the beginning, at this time, we don't have substantive design or plan updates to provide this evening, but we've been doing a tremendous amount of engagement with the Harbor School and different schools and educational groups, with community-based organizations, doing a lot of these kind of tabling and incorporating into local events nearby, to engage a lot of families, a lot of kids, a lot of younger people, which is something we've been interested in and that we hear about all of the time. So engagement in particular has been very active right now. And we are planning for our next CCLM meeting in the fall, which is when we plan to have that more kind of substantive design updates. You know, everybody is here for.
Thanks, Diana. And Alexis is here too. We can go to questions as Tammy suggested, but I'm also here to cover for Erin if she's not able to sign back in.
Okay, so now that you've taken the lead on this, which I think is a little awkward, but would you like to go back to the battery and start there?
Sure.
Yes,
Okay, so
please.
going to that, I think in the future, I need to push back on this because I think it's hard for people to take notes on everything, but let's do this. So we'll go back to the battery. We have Kathleen, who is our lead here, to answer questions if there are any.
Alice, do you mind going all the way back to the beginning? I'm sorry to say that, but I had questions before that. And
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Thank you.
if you can go section by section, then that would be probably a little bit easier.
That was our first section, sorry. I must have gotten that.
That is,
No, that is the first section, so I think I have it right. So the first slide, so Jordan's kicked us off with the plan that we all can't forget at this point, particularly that part with the US Army Corps supposedly responsible for the entire west side of Manhattan. In any case, then we moved on to Kathleen and the battery. So we will start with the battery, which is the battery of resilience in the pink. And are there questions on that?
I'm just looking at the dollar amount on the top that I can't read.
so 1.7 billion.
Other questions for the battery or for the general overview here?
I do.
I do.
Okay. Nobody in the room. Tammy, go ahead. Go ahead, Tammy.
I'm going to do section by section. So this is only going to be my general and battery questions for coastal resiliency. For general, for Jordan, the 1.7 in capital investments, can you detail or blush overview the parts that still need to be funded?
Absolutely. So, easiest way of saying all the parts are funded with the exception of the financial district and Seaport Climate Resilience Master Plan. And that alone is significant. That, a project of that scale, the number will move as we move through design, but is a $7 billion project. So, the other components, once again, fully funded, either through city capital, UPCA bonds, grants we've been awarded over the years, and we are working vigorously to come up with a plan to pay for that $7 billion through collaboration with the Army Corps of Engineers, through grants that are available. I will say, despite this feeling like an unprecedented time where there's a lot of federal money, there is not a formula funding program like there is for transportation, where you can get $7 billion in one chunk. This is really kind of a new typology of projects across the nation, and I think that the federal government doesn't have the sort of programs set up at this moment for it, but we are trying everything possible and realize at the end of the day to come up with $7 billion, it's going to require state, city, federal government to work together.
So understanding that, then taking a look at the end of the Battery Coastal Resiliency Project to the bottom of the Seaport Coastal Resiliency Project, what temporary measures are going to be put in place for that section that is not funded yet for the FIDI Seaport Climate Master Plan?
So as referenced, there are temporary features in portions. There's the interim flood protection measures that cover the seaport, actually a little bit beyond. Was shown there in the orange line. It goes down to Wall Street, so it covers a portion. But our colleagues at Emergency Management did feasibility studies for other portions of Lower Manhattan, and because of a multitude of reasons, including kind of a wave action that is most significant there, Also because a number of the kind of private building owners have done protection of their buildings already. And so the kind of protection would be duplicative. They deemed that both there and I know they came to you and talked about the Tribeca area. But the conclusion was that those systems were not feasible in those locations. And they didn't support advancing those plans beyond what is already in place.
Well, to be honest, or to be accurate, the conclusion that we were given by the Office of Emergency Management was that they would look at it again, that it was a matter of money, not necessarily a matter of, yes, the official could say it's not feasible because there was not enough money to do this, to study it in depth. And we asked that at this point, with the Army Corps plans and with Battery Park City Authority plans well ahead, that they should come back and look at possible interim solutions, given the update of the battery plan. So just, they said that's a work in progress, that they would come back.
Okay, that brings me, thank you for that, Jordan. That brings me to my second question about the battery coastal resiliency. And the construction updates and outreach and how that's actually coordinated with, and I apologize for clipping the one at the end, but we do seem to get constituency complaints often about from the areas that are surrounding the three projects that are going to be happening at the same time. You have the Battery Coastal Resiliency, you have the Southern Battery Park City, and now you will have the DOT underpass. And all three of those projects are in the same geographical area. We already have a lot of residents who are, as Battery Park City Authority can testify, inflamed from the amount of noise and weekend and night hours. So I'd like to have some detail for the community available at latest at District Service Cabinet, so it can be distributed from DOT when you're talking about the DOT underpass and what night work is being done, how loud it's going to be, and how well coordinated that timeline from a DDC project will be with the Battery Coastal Resiliency, as well as the South Battery Park City project, because that's a big constituency area. And then I'll save my BMCR for when we get to that section.
Okay, thanks, Tammy. Great. Justine?
Thanks
Can
so
you-
much. But are you gonna is Jordan gonna answer you think, Tim? Is that something you can?
I just need, it's a flag for DOT, it's a flag for Jordan. We need to, I mean, if it's a follow-up conversation after this, I'm happy to do it at District Service Cabinet, but we definitely need times and more information because it's, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I would need to go back a couple of slides. With the slide with the money on it, $1.7 billion. So in that, I'm assuming, and I think I'm correct in this, that does not include what the Battery Park City Authority is having to pay to do the resiliency that covers their plans, the south and the north and west, correct? Or does it?
South is fully funded.
Right. The South project 15 is fully funded, and that number I believe is, I do have my glasses, but I believe on the screen.
But louder, sorry?
Sorry, so the number on the screen for the South project, that is fully funded.
So 296 million, and that came from someplace else. That's not part of the 1.7 billion. And then, or it is. I'm funding for that. It is part of that. Okay, sorry. That's what I'm asking. Okay, and then TBD is for the north and west. That's fine. All right, that was one question. What does on the slide here where it says the financial district Seaport, it says highly constrained area, 90 miles? Am I reading that right? What does that mean?
0.9.
0.9. Thank you. Couldn't see the point because I was like, what are you talking about? Okay, next slide. And really quick question. When you talked about the oval lawn in Battery Park itself being closed, right? That was a place where dogs could be off leash and roam free for certain hours in the day. That is closed. That's not happening in Battery Park. That is my understanding. Is that correct?
No, it is.
We actually carved out a little area in the oval where it is off leash for the dog.
Okay, so that is still happening someplace in the Battery. That's excellent. And will that go away?
No, it's not gonna go away. It'll stay there for the duration of phase one. And then when phase two happens, we're gonna actually give back more of the oval space.
Excellent. Thank you. Those are my questions. Appreciate it.
Anybody else on the thing for the Battery on the overview? Or I'm gonna ask one question.
One question on the overview before we
Oh,
go.
go ahead. Yeah.
I just want to make sure everyone is aware of the recent article in Bloomberg on July 12th. Disaster-struck cities fight for aid as FEMA funding runs low. FEMA is stretched thin as number of big disasters pile up. If you go further into the article, that FEMA can be bankrupt in August and with a budget deficit of $6 billion. So as we enter the hurricane season, and at this point emphasize the importance of funding the FIDI section,
You gotta go away.
as having been chair during Superstorm Sandy of Community Board One, and that the next quarterly update will be after Superstorm Sandy, which will have been 12 years ago or sometime.
And a good question, thank you. I have a question on the Battery, just, and also it's kind of a global question. Why was the Battery use a vision? So this is part of this Institute for Sustainability, and they came and gave a presentation. None of us had ever heard of it before. It was a great presentation, and we learned about the Envision framework and how you had used this and gotten all sorts of points and such.
Yeah.
Is this being, what's the rest of the city doing with this Envision framework?
Well, I can let a number of the project teams talk to it. I obviously know that there was leadership from the Battery team to kind of put that forward. But my understanding is that DEC is kind of retrospectively doing Envision certifications on ESCR and BMCR, if I'm not mistaken. A number of the other efforts, they're early in the design, but following the Battery's lead, has a desire to go through that pathway. And I think as you're seeing in this slide in particular, there's great benefit. These are major construction projects, use traditionally trucking and not always using, I think Battery is unique because of the materiality there. And so I would say some of the projects will not be as easy, and I'm not saying it's easy, but I think that certainly the intent kind of across the portfolio is to embed sustainability. And I would say certainly for FIDI Seaport, where we are earliest, we have kind of goals across the project, both on the embodied carbon and just like an overall focus across that effort.
Thanks, that's really helpful. And then,
I'm sorry, just to comment on our ends, like we are looking, we did look at Envision for the Northwest project, and Gordon said it doesn't always fit, every project sort of doesn't fit the box. We're looking to see if some of the principles of Envision we can incorporate into the project. As we look at like the body carbon across the project, we can salvage and reuse sort of diversion and things like that. So we're looking at it, but Gordon's right, like it really fits like a certain type of project and not all things. But we are.
maybe in a future presentation, you can provide why it is a fit or it isn't, a little more detail on it, because it was very interesting to us and it seemed to be a very nice project.
It's our infrastructure project, you follow a framework.
Yeah.
So Envision kind of works with infrastructure projects, and in the early stages, before they even started design, we needed to have a buy-in from the owner, from the parks, services, from everyone who's working on this project, so that they can come together, including the construction man who came in early, to really look at it and say, where can we actually really help with sustainability? Because at the end of the day, we do resilience, but the other hand, have to think about sustainability. So I think when we look at it together, it made a lot of sense to pursue a lot of creative ideas, push the envelope and see where we can be sustainable.
Here, I mean, this should be done everywhere. I mean, this is what we're saying, so.
The more the better. I mean, we've looked at it and our team continues to look at it, but it may not work for our project. It's to be.
Okay, and we would like to know, just because the sustainability aspect of the reuse material is very powerful.
No, yes,
and the
sustainability.
placement of the materials and all of this. I understand they're very different projects.
No, and
I get it.
sustainability obviously is a huge goal of the authority, and
Yes.
so we always look for it like in all projects.
Right.
So I think we want to the best
I know.
like,
Can I-
no,
I
I'm
just,
saying this in general. we're searching for it too, like we're trying to make it work, but.
Okay,
I
terrific.
just,
I
I
do-
want to, Alice, can I comment on that? Because Claudia, when we had the last meeting for the Northwest Resiliency Project, we were told very specifically that the cost of storage for sustainability and reuse was so high that sustainability and reusage, because we asked about the beautiful granites and stones and other things that were very identifiable as personality in Battery Park City, you know, the materiality. And we were very specifically told that while being considered was extraordinarily expensive and is I understand size and scope of project, but we are doing sections. And I will say, in comparison to the slide, for example, that you have here, where it's done with wood and granite refurbishment versus replacement with molded concrete in areas, is extraordinarily different approaches.
Well, I mean, I would say this, I feel like I wasn't at the meeting on the 20th, but I know that that is definitely not accurate in terms of what we're discussing internally in terms of reuse of the material itself on site.
Yeah, we are really diving deep into it, looking at all of the materials that we currently have and trying to reuse as many as possible. So railings, even granite steps, everything.
Even
Yeah.
salvage materials we have from the South Project that we may not be able to use on site. I think we're trying to. I think maybe what they were talking about in terms of expense is sort of reprocessing those or repurposing them can be expensive. But I think we want to the greatest extent, like we understand we have a wealth of materials, you know, pun intended, in Battery Park City. I think as much as we can, we want to reuse them. But we're still looking at the feasibility of that. So I'm sorry if somebody sort of made it sound like we weren't looking at that, because that's not accurate.
We are going to, by the way, this committee will review the Northwest Battery Park City plans as a sort of step and consider a resolution on what we've all heard in public hearing on the 20th. So you're aware, if anyone who's interested in that, we can add this kind of conversation into a resolution. I just have one question with the transportation of the room, and thanks so much for coming. At this joint, I just really, oh, it's gone. Well, can you bring up the overs of the big plan, the first slide of the whole thing? I'm just curious where the
The DOT plan?
right here. Yeah. We hear rumors of, you know, state DOT, the city, New York City DOT are all looking at 9A. And but none of us know exactly what they're looking at. And of course, here you are with the underpass right there. Can you give us any more information or such on that, you know, where we're going with 9A? And as you're probably aware, this board, with other boards along the west side, along with our congressmen, have really advocated for a West Side Resiliency Task Force to really look at the west side, to look at that artery. Can you give us any update on that?
Sounds like you're familiar with the kind of like jumble of jurisdiction more than exists, which, right? So, you know, I can't clarify on this map, like exactly where the line is drawn. But I can verify that, when there are projects overlap with 9A, right? We need to have just like complete and like, very close coordination. I know there's a few conversations that we're still having with other stakeholders in the room, so, yeah, there's a lot of complexity.
Well, we'd love a flushing out of that conversation whenever we can get it, and that's the very first.
And that's, yeah,
we
probably worth
Anyway,
like within that conversation for Northwest.
thank you. All right, I think.
Alice, can we ask DOT one other thing? In their work that they're doing, if they could send us not only the CCL contact number, but what's going on with the doors? In the first resiliency pass that was done post Sandy for the Battery Park underpass, very specifically, there was some resiliency work done and sort of giant floodgate doors.
Tammy, let me get more information from the team. So right, and I will say at this point, we're still in the procurement phase, as I mentioned, so we don't have the bridges CCL contacts, you know, hashed out just yet. We don't have a firm start date, but hopefully in the coming weeks and months, we'll work towards that. But I heard you earlier, you want some more information about permit coordination, work hours with the other existing major projects in the area. So that I can get, as well as just the history of the previous installation of the flood doors.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great to know if they were being removed, if they're being, exactly what's the status, because we did have a presentation, I don't remember how many years ago, but it was a post-Sandy update on the waterproofing and floodproofing that had been done to those areas. So, yeah.
I started in this office in 2019. I was with the agency many years before that, but let me get more of the flood door history on the underpass street.
Well, thanks very much. I'm sorry we jumped ahead, but we did. The Battery West Street underpass is now up. So questions on that generally? Did you have your hands?
Yeah, I'd like a general question. So I work in waste and garbage. And so I'd love to reuse and repair stuff, especially because C&D is the largest generator of waste. And landfills contribute over 12% of the methane that go into our air, and the production of goods and services are over 60%. So the only thing, we're doing a lot of work here. I didn't read, like, when you made that one big chart at the beginning, I was like, holy crap, there's a lot of stuff happening. I'd love for everyone, like, this is all in the context of resiliency and saving ourselves and our climate. But if we're throwing everything away into garbage, they're like, and we're ripping up trees and we ripped up the battery stuff. I'd love it if, I know you're looking at it, but for all of the projects to think about as much as reuse, repair, recycle. I look at all the C&D stuff in the city. No one recycles. I go through the trash. I ask the contractors. They say they do it, but I know where it goes because I go to the train station. So, putting that into your RFPs, into your scopes, really requiring your contractors to follow through on the New York City zero waste principles and goals, or the mayor's office of climate and justice would be awesome, because the contractors are not held to the standards that the city says. And if you want, I can take you through a transfer station and show you everything that's thrown away in the wrong place.
Good point. That's true.
So just, like in that concept. And then the other thing is, there's so much work happening. When do you think the downtown residents will see something? Like tangibly feel something? You see what I mean? Like something, 1, 2, or 3 things. Because all I hear are the.
You can see quite a bit.
No, like, we're still complaining about stuff. I mean, yes, like experiencing the positive aspect. Not the, I mean, I'm on the chats where the night work happening and the floodlights.
Yeah. The Hunter Roberts and the South Garden Park facilities, the stuff would be giving people back their parks. That's huge.
And I think like celebrating that would be like a really.
Oh, leaving. Celebrations in many different dimensions.
So many.
That's rumbles, but I actually read all this. I think it's pretty amazing some of the stuff happens. So we're good to have a win on the other side.
Thank you for that. All right.
You're doing good work.
Thank you. That's a great point. Okay, so the next step was Brooklyn Bridge, right on that, the Brooklyn Bridge Montgomery project. And we took that up. Any questions or thoughts on that? I have a question. Have you seen the interceptor gate? Like what that, yeah, that slide, there it is. Yeah. So number 1, is that like something we've seen pictures of? And then go back to the, does any, I don't know if I'm directing this to. I forgot.
Oh, we can certainly provide, we have a rendering of that, and I know that's been.
See that? I mean, have you presented that? I just don't remember ever seeing. That's quite a large piece of building, and I'm just trying to think how that.
Yeah, I don't think that.
We don't have.
No, it's not.
We don't have a rendering in this presentation, but we've had renderings in past presentations, and there is a rendering on the website.
Okay, so, if this, you were saying is going to DDC or has gone to DDC, could you just remind me what you said about when you're going to DDC, and where you're at in that process?
NCR?
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat the question one more time? I couldn't hear it over.
Could you just
mention, are you going to DDC? Are you done with that process? Where are you in the process of working with DDC, or did I just get that wrong? I don't know why I heard that.
Oh, we are doing community engagement for DDC. DDC is currently managing the construction of this project. So they are the agency who is leading the construction management. And we are working with the PMCM team which is GPI, who is working for DDC for the program management and construction management of the project.
Yes, Alice, the answer is yes.
Yeah. So for all the details and things that aren't appearing on this, summary, we go onto the website and we'll find out all there.
You updated regular, absolutely.
Okay, thanks. All right, anybody else on Brooklyn Bridge, Montgomery?
I would love to know what the status of the most southern tip is if they could elaborate on what's happening on the southern tip and where and how it will connect into the only other part of the paid project that's ready to go. We're a little bit behind for the Seaport Coastal Resiliency, but I'm interested in the connection down by Brooklyn Bridge.
Sure. So currently this project will stand alone from the seaport. So it ties into, it's a little complicated under the Brooklyn Bridge area, as I'm sure you're familiar with, but it ties into, there's a wall that's over there that the flood wall and the floodgates will tie into, that's existing. So the end of the project will terminate there and BMCR will be able to function on its own, and then Seaport will pick up.
And how does the ability to access the future of the area that is the Brooklyn Bridge Beach tie into the walled in area? And then I have one more just during construction question after that.
Sure. I don't know if I have the answer. We might have to get back to you, Jordan, unless you know the answer about how, or someone else on the call, about the beach portion.
I think a conversation with some graphics probably be helpful here, but so we can follow up.
Okay.
To provide the interceptor rendering and the rendering of the condition. My understanding is it's relatively less programming in this area to allow for access. There's a flip up gate in this area as well. Once again, prioritizing access. Certainly something we heard during that design, but I think we can have a conversation with you, Tammy, that provide some visuals to make this a little bit easier.
Could we even consider a tour?
I never turned out.
Okay, you heard.
Maybe no tour in August. That's my rule. September, May.
Okay, I think that would be incredibly valuable to see these gates in action, or some of them, or getting built, and be able to better understand that area. So I would follow up on that one. It's perfect. Thank you. All right.
And we could certainly send over some renderings in the meantime also.
Perfect. Okay, September tour renderings today. Sold. So South Battery Park City, was that the next one? Oh, Seaport.
No, I had a question, Alice, regarding BMCR.
Yeah. Okay. So, next.
Can it go?
Alice, you forgot let Rotha go.
Yeah. So, super quick question. Well, two questions actually related to BMCR/Seaport Coastal Resiliency. One is there's obviously an enormous gap between, let's say, John Street, which is at the base of Seaport Coastal Resiliency, and the battery project. I was wondering, what is the plan for that? Related to BMCR specifically, Jordan, you know what I'm going to ask for, which is the swimming pool, because, our Manhattan district is the only one that does not have a public swimming pool in all of Manhattan. And so we would love to get one. And we think that if you're going to build a 10-foot tall concrete wall which is a tie-in for BMCR underneath the Brooklyn Bridge, then maybe we could have an above ground 10-foot tall swimming pool that would service our community so that we don't have to look at the concrete wall. And it's also just insane that we have, so much of our residential community here that lives right off the water, and we have no place to teach our children to swim. And so it makes so much sense to have it there. And I'm going to just keep on saying that over and over again until you pass out from exhaustion and just build us a swimming pool. So that's number one. Number two is, do we know where the plus pool is going? Wait, Georgia, have you already passed out from exhaustion yet? Did we have the swimming pool now?
Can we go to the second part? I don't know. Anna, if you have any, I always trust your plus pool knowledge. I don't think
No, I just don't. And I've also just come back from a vacation, so if there was anything in the last week, I may not be up to date, but I don't know offhand, but I'm wondering if maybe one of my other EDC colleagues do, please feel free to jump in. If not, I'm happy to check on the latest and get back to you.
What about the first question?
I've talked to Rosa at length about this. I certainly understand. I think this is something that we've heard from Ms. Torres and Smith houses over the years. It is not the scope of these projects, but this is very compelling and a force of nature, and so I don't doubt her ability to speak this into existence. But I would say as part of this project, it is outside of the scope and under construction. But I hope there's a path forward.
I think, Jordan, part of my reasoning for asking for the tour is to ensure that for where Rosa's advocacy and our community board's advocacy and CB3 advocacy is to ensure that the project area that we're talking about does not preclude the ability to get to a Brooklyn Bridge beach, does not preclude the plus pools, and that there is infrastructure being considered or thought of for future use. We want I'm incredibly jealous of what we have over at the Hudson River Park Trust, the public benefit and the public use, not just ferries and commercialization. I don't want to pay $75 to go walk through balloons on a pier. I want to be able to go swimming or go down to the water without financial resources. People need to be able to access our waterfront. And that's really why I keep pushing for the tour and what's happening with the bridge and what's happening with plus pools. We kind of bounce off each other, Rosa and I, a lot on this, but it's, here we go. Public use, public benefit.
Accessibility to the beach is not hindered by the BMCR project because that's the reason for all the flip updates. So in a non-storm condition, accessibility is not a problem. So you're still going to have the same access for them.
Okay.
Agreed. One of the biggest points of the BMCR was to use the flip up gates so that way that it wasn't walled off. There's only a few sections where there is a stationary wall and not a flip up gate, but we could again certainly bring, we've brought up the schematics of the lower portion of the project before, so we could definitely bring it again. And as Jordan mentioned, we could also, facilitate a tour with EDC.
Would be really helpful. I think, these, to understand these things as opportunities, of course, is part of the excitement of what you're doing, I'm sure. And just to leave that open and to keep trying would be great assets to what you're doing.
I have one thing.
Yes.
I think Jordan's right, we're talking about the scope of the project, it's so important. But where you all will be really, really helpful in trying to build resilient communities as opposed to just keeping water out, which is what ultimately we want to do as much as we can, is to work on the elected legislation and the political component of this work, which would really help us be able to access the additional resources required to answer your questions. Because we can only go so far with the money that we have, the time that we have, and then these projects are so complex to begin with. So while I think all of us would be very interested in getting approval here, if that makes sense with the design and if that's what the POB wants, we really don't have a pathway for it now. Other than, trying to have our internal conversations with the different agencies that are responsible for that activity, and figuring out where they are in their capital budgeting and where that fits in their priorities. But to bring those two streams of work together in the timing needed, it's really, really hard. And so that's where we're not being very like, yes, we'll figure that out for you, is because we don't have a mechanism to do that right now. So I think talking further about how to rally behind the scenes or to get the budget, like, I'll be honest with you, we don't even have budget for a new Bureau of Coastal Resilience to bring all these pieces together, right? So we need to really just, I think, start working in parallel processes that would support this.
It's a really good point.
I love that comment. You're trying to build a resilient community, right?
Yeah.
That's keeping in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea here is that you're planning for it, you're not building it, but that it's some phase in 30 years. Exactly. And that's really what we're asking for. Yeah, I mean, I know Rosa would like to see it there tomorrow, but yeah, absolutely.
Would
all right.
like to see it tomorrow, but actually there is this interesting intersection between Speaker Adrian Adams and City Hall and New York State all simultaneously being very interested in swimming pools right now. And I think that if there is any way we are able to sort of capture that and have a pool built right next to Alfred E. Smith houses, where we have a resiliency project that is going to be incredibly disconnecting for the neighborhood, that would, it is literally a historically disadvantaged community. It would be the best place that we could look at creating a swimming pool for our community. I'll stop on that now, but
No,
you know,
it's really important. I'm glad you bring it up each time. Absolutely, 100%. I think everybody on the board agrees. I think the community generally agrees. And I think everyone on these teams agrees with it. It's just making it happen and for these parallel resilient, moments, making it happen. So I think that was that on the battery Brooklyn Bridge Montgomery. So I think we've got to Seaport Coastal Resilience at this point, if I'm not mistaken, or wherever it lands on the list. So any questions on that would be the small area that's within the Pride Master Plan that we saw just a little bit of conversation. We had this meeting, I don't know how many of you were able to attend. It was, an open house where some of these plans were provided, very, very schematic, seemingly very little there. I just think one comment that I know I made to you when I was at the meeting, which was in all of the plans, you see so few sections, but this is an entire sectional exercise when you're saying high ground to low ground. Interior place to the waterfront, and I find that it's always a flat plan and no one could possibly understand it, and particularly in the Seaport, it would be really helpful. And I know you showed this one diagram where you're showing section of where the water goes, but more of that would be really helpful as you develop those plans. But I was curious about one thing that you mentioned, that you have a potential public design concept meeting in the fall, but yet you wouldn't have yet seen any of the designs, or did I get that wrong? That was up on some slide you had.
Yeah, in our schedule that we're expected to come back to the committee warrant in the fall. As we start our concept design of going to DC, more materials and just putting together what is possible. And LBC. So we would be coming back here, still very early concept designs that we're flushing, that we would have started to flush out with agencies and get feedback.
So would we be seeing as a community and be actively working with you on what these plans and designs might look like before you go to PDC and landmarks? Is that fair sense of the order of things here? I'm just not sure I understand at what point does the community get to engage on these plans before they're going to the city agency?
Yeah, so if I see something wrong, because I understand that the conceptual design at the PDC, LPC level is really just setting the stage, and this is the project, it's coming their way, this is what we're thinking. This is maybe the alignment or some of the toolkits that we're gonna be using in the concept design that will then get implemented in the alignment that is chosen. So there would still be time.
If Catherine's burning her brow.
I guess I just want to follow up on your concern.
Yeah.
Because I know you were able to swing by the meeting, and I think you were there. I know the beer was able to swing by. I don't know who else had the opportunity, unless you were paid to be there for work. But I was kind of confused because the poster boards that were here, if you spoke Chinese, you got a handout. If you spoke Spanish, you got a handout, but if you spoke English, you didn't get a handout. We were told that the poster boards would be posted online, and they were also not shared tonight. So if we go through the individual slides tonight, you don't show the alignment, you don't show how high the flood barrier defense system would be. And some other things that were raised at the meeting, if we can go to the senior section.
There now, this is it, yes, you can run through.
And everybody knows I am so supportive of resiliency in the Five Seaport area.
Yes, and thanks
So,
for getting us.
I'm so happy to be here at 12 years, so how are you gonna end up with a public design vision if the next quarterly update is in November, which is after Superstorm Sandy, and we're not even shared publicly in this forum, the slides from the Seaport meeting, and they're not online. So let's just go through the slides, and you will not see any alignment there.
I think those are the 4 slides.
And also in the open house promotion, go back a slide. How come other resiliency meetings get posted up through CB1? I know you guys are so busy, but why it was posted through your media assets? It wasn't tweeted out, it wasn't on
This
Facebook?
one? It was.
It was on Facebook? Okay, maybe I missed it. I didn't see it on
It
Facebook.
was on our website and
Oh, I
our
didn't see
channel.
it on, I didn't see
Okay,
it on your social media. And I didn't see it on Twitter. So I saw it listed, I didn't see the advertisement, but I could have missed it in the broadsheet. So outreach is really important, and I spoke to some people, residents in the area, living right across the street on Josh Street. The mother, takes her kid there, was not aware of it. So outreach is really important. But what I'm really concerned about is 3 weeks later after this meeting, what happened to those poster boards and why they weren't shared at today's meeting?
So I will note that the boards are available online.
Oh, they are.
They are. It is.
What website? Because I couldn't find it on the LMCR one.
So that's on LMCR. If you go to past meetings, it was uploaded 10 days ago or so.
Past meetings?
I'll text you the link.
Great.
We are also working on it.
Well, offense, Jordan, send it to all of us, please, and it would be great to put it out on social media, and you can tag CB1 everywhere.
Because if you're watching these presentations on a hybrid, it's really hard to see these slides that are very, very small. Even in person, it's very hard to see what's under the red, the blue, and the green over there. So it would be great as Community Board 1, when you give the presentation to the full board meeting, you obviously can't always put every single slide, but there's some new information that would be helpful for people to see the slides.
Yeah, Catherine's 100% right on this. I mean, thank you for raising that. It's really, because I realize I want to present something, but I realize there's nothing really in these slides that I can drop, and I will have to go on the website.
Why aren't they here?
That is a really fair question. This is your opportunity to update the community. And I'd say it did concern me to see that you have in the same period of time, the fall, PBC and the community board update. I mean, we need to come before, or at least with, that's always trouble. on any board, you know, to have the agency that's reviewing it come in, and we have no idea what it is that they're looking at. So I'm gonna ask if it's possible to return in September for just a review of Seaport Coastal Resilience, if it's possible. We'll give you a date and, you know, really drill down on that before this will go on the design commission and landmark preservation. I mean, I think it's, you know, we talked about this when we saw you. It's so to the advantage of all the people who work on these projects to hear from the public that lives in these places that knows it so well. Right? I mean, so it's a win-win generally. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely our schedule. There's a lot of. I think the September submission for PDC is definitive.
September 20th?
No.
Oh, okay. So if the community board wanted to respond, they didn't get the presentation in July, you don't have meetings in August.
That would be now.
So there'll be no opportunity for the community input that rebuild by design consultant talks about. And so one of the questions I had that also got the other poster board was the view corridor. Currently, the alignment, and no one could explain at that evening was, if you look, you can barely see on the far left there is the Imagination Playground. The alignment, there's no alignment shown on here. The wall goes between the playground and the backside of the South Street Seaport Museum. And is there someone in this room that can explain how that alignment was designed? Then the alignment wall, as you can see, goes up through Fulton Street and along, is it Pearl Street? If you could just talk about the alignment on this picture so everybody in this room gets it.
Yeah.
Go.
I just want to say our project limits, I want to start first and foremost by saying that our alignment right now has not been established, which is why you don't see it. What we're showing is our limits of the project, where it's been funded, is between the VMCR project. So the feasibility of having the flood alignment go up John Street on either side of Imagination Playground is being looked at by the design.
Okay, because the picture was the wall was going between the defunct bathroom at the Imagination Playground and the Seaport. It's on that little strip, which is maybe 10 wide.
Yeah.
So now you might be looking at the John Street corridor.
We've always been looking at it. I think that,
but no one has said that.
Your feedback was taken. Alright, we hear you. And I think what we learned was the graphic was poorly done in that it showed a programmable space is what we were looking at in that area and trying not to show an alignment. And by doing that, I think.
We have to look at three alternatives in the way, so we are still evaluating. If that was one concept that was presented, so we're looking at a concept that goes around it, on the playground. So it is a process, and that's why we seek your input thoroughly, so that informs us. We understand, for example, now that the playground is maybe important to protect, to look at that. So we're gonna look at both.
So just to remind everybody what happened during Superstorm Sandy at the Seaport. That playground was in tip-top shape when it opened. And it was the economic mode after 9/11 to get people to come back. It was built with LMDC funding. And it opened up in 2010. Currently, it is in a state of disrepair. We took a walk there on Friday. I have pictures I can share with anyone who's interested. And it flooded during Superstorm Sandy. The prior school that's no longer over there, Blue School, was very concerned because it was flooded. They were concerned about the safety. The features that made that playground unique are not working. They're not there. The rigs are broken. Pushing the button for the water didn't work. There's no umbrellas, heat advisory weather. The bathroom is deplorable. There are cigarette butts nearby. There's a cone covering a hole. So I hope I know it's not in the scope of this plan, but that we save the playground. It's 0.3 acres. That's all it is. This is all the kids have in the Fide Seaport area along the East River Esplanade. That's public. Other people have housing complexes or otherwhere. This is the only public playground. Right down there between there and the Battery. So this is really an important little park. It could be an oasis, and we've got to save it. And we need to save the view corridor to the backside of the historic complex. So do we know, has there been drilling, so we know what's under there? Because we know it's really old landfill. And the buildings are historic, and it would be a shame that at this point if they collapse. I'm asking, have you done?
The coastal surge project, it's a sea level rise project. So the barriers, the seepage barrier, and all the water levels is not the same level as a coastal.
So how high would the wall have to go from ground level next to the place?
So the ground is about elevation 6, let's say, and taking the wall to the elevation 11.
Correct.
5 feet above.
So it would be roughly a 5-foot wall. I just want people to understand a 5-foot wall along the playground. So where do you place this wall? It's on John Street or between the playground, the historic buildings? Actually really impacts the view corridor in the context of that area.
It's a critical point. I don't mean to interrupt, but we do have the entire Battery Park City, 92 acres to cover. So I think this is critical. I think they've agreed to come back in September. Hopefully the timing is such, and it's before the June. We'll have to look at our schedule because you're right, we don't meet in August. But it's, obviously there's a lot of information that people need to hear and see. And, you know, I would, again, the points that Catherine's raising, when I hear you talk, it's 5 feet, no one can understand that. And it would be one diagram, one simple drawing section showing you from, just crossing over Peck Slip and showing Peck Slip directly across to the river would be an incredibly helpful diagram. So anyway, we look forward to the follow-up. I know Tammy had her hand raised on this. Tammy, are you good there? I can't, unfortunately.
I mean, I hadn't gotten to this part yet, but yes, I thank Catherine for bringing it up. And I will also comment about, I see all the green things that's, it's very disingenuous taking a look at the green spots in the hope that a large planting, is that more cement? Are we, I mean, it's a lot of hard surface. I'm looking to understand how we have dialogues where we say that concrete does not help with climate change and it's a heat retention, et cetera, et cetera. And yet, I don't really see any green along here.
All right, let's.
I'd like them to come back in the fall with more detail.
Yeah, 100%. So Rosa, and then I think we'll move on. Rosa?
Yes, thank you. So just my question of where that ends on the left side at Imagination Playground South. And we know that with Sandy, the water came in multiple blocks in, and right now we have a gaping hole. And I understand that Fide Seaport is going to take, decades to build. But what's our plan for the enormous open area between Seaport Coastal Resiliency and the Battery for the decades it will take for us to build Fide Seaport Resiliency? Because our protection is only as good as, if there's a large hole in the wall, then that's where all the water is going to go. So I'm just trying to understand, what's our plan for that gap?
So I think, I think to clarify, the IFPM does go a bit further, but there certainly is a gap. I think we are undoubtedly safer than we were post Sandy. I think we have done a lot as a city in terms of our hardening our electrical infrastructure, Con Edison, the segmentation of the grid, a lot of those building owners, have done work to their boilers, elevating. MTA has done work across the system, but certainly in Lower Manhattan. But yes, at the end of the day, that's why we invite Seaport, and I think that's why we are pushing to move that project as fast as we can. There's more work to be done.
Okay, thanks very much. I think I'm just gonna leave it to say that whatever you're submitting to PDC and LPC, this board wants to see. Okay? Perfect. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Look forward to the follow-up. So I think we're moving on to the Battery Park City plans. If I'm not mistaken, Northwest Battery, I think South Battery Park City. Any questions on that? That's a work very much in progress. If anyone wants to see things in action, that's it. Okay. And then
Alice, can I ask, sorry, Alice, can I ask BPCA one question? Because they laid out their timing, we already been to the June meeting. So the one thing that doesn't I understand is how or what will the public know about what has been updated and changed, if anything, before the DEIS? Or will what's submitted for the DEIS be exactly what we saw with minor tweaks on June 20th?
It is the latter. Technically, it's basically what you saw on the 20th with minor tweaks, but very minor. And again, once we have a sense of timing of when that release would happen, but I mean, basically the 60% design right now is out with agencies for comment. So it's between now and when that CIS is released, it's unlikely we will be able to pick up all of those. So it'll be closer to what you saw. It won't be significantly different is the short answer, sorry. But
so for the public feedback and clamor that you received on several topics, nothing will be changing?
No, not right now. We're still addressing comments received at the meeting on the 20th. So we just got the transcript recently. It was that last week?
Yes.
Last week, so we're working on addressing those comments, posting them. We still have to take a look at those in math and understand sort of the breadth and nature of the comments that we got. And also comments from agencies as well, which is, again, also going to influence or potentially change design, but we have not received many of those comments yet.
Right, but I guess my concern is the feeling that there were some things unaddressed and changes somewhat less than minor that were asked for, and the confirmation from the Battery Park City Authority that changes were not made based on feedback is a bit disconcerting to me. And
I'm saying the changes have not been made yet because we have not compiled all the feedback received at the 20th, just to be clear, which I probably was not.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
Joe, I apologize if I wasn't clear, right, that we've not gotten all the feedback from the 20th yet. Once we do, let's review that. I think your question was, in the EIS, it's going to reflect largely what you saw on the 20th. There might be one or two tweaks, and that's probably related to language rather than actual substantive design changes. I should have been clearer. I apologize for that.
Okay, I'm getting it out there. Jeff?
Yeah, hi, everybody. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I have a couple of questions. One, well, they both relate sort of directly or indirectly to Gateway. The first one is that the plans that we saw on the 20th have kind of a gap for that area of the Esplanade right in front of Gateway, which I understand will involve rebuilding the platform in its entirety and figuring out what to do in terms of a flood wall that has to jut out basically over the platform as it goes around Gateway. Is there a time frame for when we will see something more detailed on what the plans are for that section of the Esplanade in front of Gateway?
Yes, so you're correct. We have to address unique site vision, we can't leave over the platform at Gateway. We have to rebuild the platform at that location, complete rebuild, and then address how we wrap the various terraces that are in front of Gateway. So I know that we met with the Gateway Tenants Association in Right, it'll be at the end of May, I think, early June. And so we're working on revising some of the things that we showed you at that meeting to be able to come back and talk to the board and talk to building management about how we're looking to address it. Because we understand that there's a lot of challenges, both from a structural perspective, but also the view corridors to the building, especially the restaurant that's there, and
Yes.
also the dining terraces, north and south. So we're working to try to address all of those. Oh, look at that. Thank you for that. And yeah, so you can see it's on the upper left-hand side. This area for Gateway. So we are going to be coming back probably to the tenants association, and obviously you have a conversation with building management as well. I would say in probably 3 weeks or so, right? I think probably month, I would say, maybe a little bit longer, depending. We want to be able to bring like a couple of different options because we've been trying to we've been noodling on it ourselves about how we address it and still maintain the existing character that's there.
Yeah.
When it's a non-reflective.
Yeah. I mean, details obviously matter a lot there. The second also relates indirect, Gateway sort of an example of an issue, and that is, I was speaking with Gateway management last week about their dealing with the resiliency project. And one of the things that they mentioned is that there are storm drains within Gateway and within the garage that in Sandy were the source of flooding, that the water came up and flooded the garage from the storm drains in the garage and within the area around some of the Gateway buildings. I'm assuming you all are taking that into account, drainage generally in Battery Park City, and where the storm drains normally let out, so that we don't build a wall and have the water just pumped up through the storm drains. But it's been a long time since we've had any real discussion on that subject. So I guess two-part question. Can you confirm you are in fact planning for that and dealing with the drainage? And maybe second part is that one of the presentations you have in the future, if you could just address the drainage and how you're dealing with it in that respect.
Sure, so I can answer your super question with yes and yes, but we are looking at drainage on the dry side because there are existing drainage conditions that are present. And obviously we don't want to exacerbate them by putting the flood protection system in. So we're looking at various measures to address that, whether it's regrading, whether it's changes to existing stormwater infrastructure, green infrastructure. So we're looking at a bunch of different options and backflow prevention. Thank you, Angela. So yeah, I think we're looking at obviously other causes of ponding even, just to make sure we're not making a situation worse. We can certainly come back and talk about that. We've done lots of work on drainage, so.
Okay.
It's not the most exciting topic to talk about, but we can come back and talk about it certainly.
Yes, I understand it's not exciting, but it'll be, we don't want it to be exciting during a storm.
It's very technical, but we are looking at it because there are areas in Battery Park City and beyond that have existing ponding. Whether, it's in an extreme grid condition, but in a cloud condition, most definitely. So we're looking at both, and also in areas adjacent to our flood protection system in Tribeca as well. Long answer, but yes and yes.
Okay, thank you.
Claudia, following up on Jeff's note, does that mean that you will have changes that you will be able to share with the public before going to the information, right, for the blank spots before the DIEIS? So I'm thinking about the area around Pump House Park and the area around Gateway that was all said to be more information to follow, and other areas in the north.
I think in the context of the draft EIS, they'll be addressed, but in broader terms rather than specific solutions, because those are still part of discussions that we're having with DEP about the larger drainage sort of network that we're proposing as part of the project. So I think we'll be able to talk about it in broad brushstrokes in the DEIS, and then it'll have more certainty when it comes to the FEIS, because there'll be conversations between those two, and we'll also get comments from agencies during that time. So we'll have more clarity for the FEIS and more specificity, I would say.
And when is that?
That's for probably the end of this year, early next year. Right now, we're tracking. All goes well. That's what we're tracking right now.
Tammy, we've got the third part of our agenda on the Northwest Battery Park Resiliency Plan, so maybe the Battery Park, I hate keeping everyone hostage, so maybe just Battery Park City.
Maybe for like 20 minutes, but not much
No,
longer
no,
than that.
no, absolutely. Please don't go though, anybody, because we really need you for quorum. So those of you who are on the committee, we really need you to stay. I just want to go, for this resolution. So, I don't know, is that okay to do it that way, Jordan? Because I hate to think it's 8:30. I think we could, if you want to stay, you're more than welcome to stay to listen to us discuss a little bit more about our response to the plans that we saw on June 20th. But we were just going to make comments on those plans if the committee wanted to on the resiliency part of it. I know Justine's committee, Battery Park City, will be talking about construction schedule and the like, quality of life issues. So if anyone has comments on the June 20th plans and what you've seen tonight, we are going to be writing a resolution. And that's what is next on our agenda. So it's sort of a nice segue to Battery Park City resiliency. But before I guess we all leave, does anyone else have any overarching question about Battery Park City before we dive into the resolution?
I actually just wanted to say thank you to everybody at EDC that came, and because you just keep coming and we really appreciate it, and having all of the projects shown together simultaneously really helps us to understand, instead of the way that it was done before, it was like project by project. It's enormously informative, and we really appreciate all the work that you guys put into making it digestible, and linking it all together, giving us a timeline, just all of it, the cohesiveness of the information as presented is really awesome. So just wanted to say thank you. And even though we nitpick and we will not give up on the swimming pool, I just want you to know that we really appreciate everything that you're doing, but we still want the swimming pool. Thank you. Good night. Stay cool.
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful coda. So I want to thank you all very much. Thanks so much for coming. And if you have any final comments or any of you about, resiliency at large here in Lower Manhattan, but we're delighted that you're part of us.
Bill should say something sage now. I'm also really impressed having been fairly new to this coastal resilience work in New York, and the commitment and the input you're all providing in the community board is so valuable. So it's a model for what we're trying to do around this. And we're still a small, mighty bureau, but we're here to help you as well, and still, work really closely with Jordan. Trying to make sure we can push as many of your ideas forward as we can, where we can, and where we can't, we'll be honest with you and try to work to figure out a new way around this. The goal is community response.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And thank you so much. You're here to help as well. And thank you guys so much for everybody for participating. I'd say, if I may say, the number one thing that we are really looking at is this holistic understanding, particularly, all these plans that form the peninsula of Lower Manhattan and how they all do work together, and particularly in that juncture where the Army Corps comes in, and that never really gets discussed, and it has to.
Well, I'm happy to come back and talk to where the Army Corps is next time you have space on your agenda. It's not where we are, right? We'll share all the information that we have.
That would be.
I'd also say we're also trying to now pull together the big Lower Manhattan drainage picture as well, because there have been separate, a lot of massive undertakings, and now we can step back and from the DEP perspective, who's going to be operating all of this infrastructure, and not just the coastal piece, but the stormwater pieces as well. Like understanding what our inland flooding is going to be is really important. So once we're starting to think about that internally at DEP. Once I get a better story picture to tell you and a nice way to explain it, we can come back and talk about that as well.
That would be incredibly helpful. We have asked DEP to come to talk about green infrastructure. You remember this very well. I guess it was last year, maybe the year before. And it would be really, really helpful. And we were told there isn't any. You know, there's no green infrastructure and all these traffic islands and everything. And we really like seeing more of it. And we have all these opportunities, you know, and we have all these little parklets and things, and we never can seem to get traction to actually follow through and see rain gardens or just small items of, you know, resilience. You know, we were told by the Department of Transportation we were talking about, the Chinatown Park Place area, right?
Yeah.
Park Road, thank you. That there was in your that you didn't have in your kid park any kind of resilient, you know, flooring material. That really wasn't, you know, part of this part. You know, things like that were so interesting to me that we really do need to think about how to change these, you know, these agencies and what you're all, you know, using in terms of resilient stuff. And so it's wonderful when you can come and talk to us about that, because we really, really want to support it. And there's a lot of people really interested in making things happen, but some of them even have private money that they're willing to give to it, and we just need to happen and make it happen, right? So anyway, thank you so much again for coming, everybody. And this is if you want to be, except for Battery Park City, which is on our agenda, but you don't have to stay because we're going to go talk on ourselves.
We have like 8:45 or so then.
Yeah.
Questions you want.
Yeah, I think it's the time to thank you again so much. It was great seeing you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Catch you out at 8:30. That's not terrible.
We were saying we had to head out and if people have more questions for us at the authority.
Yeah,
In
so-
terms of their.
Have any further questions? I didn't have. You know, I don't know. What we were thinking of in terms of a resolution was to, I talked about this a little bit, Tammy, was to basically take what we've written down 3 resolutions. I think we were sent them all, and they're actually copies of them here. And the most recent one was just last April. So what I did was to outline all of the things that we asked for and that we haven't yet received. And as a way to kind of refresh your memory and make sure that we really make good on some of these things. And you actually said you would too, which I'm sure good things you will, and I can just review some of them. And that was sort of a schematic idea for resolution. I'm certainly not dictating this, I'm just suggesting it as a system that might be helpful to the authority and to our board meeting to make a summary about what we saw on the 20th. And, you know, not just repeat ourselves continuously, but to take what didn't we see yet? What would we like to see differently? So that's where we're at. I know who's still with us. It looks like Justine and Jeff. So I'll go through a few. I mean, first I have to say, are there any questions for the authority? If you don't have them, that's okay.
I tell people to tell to the committee.
Yes.
If there were things that was in your sketch that you can let us know now, we can let you know like what the time frame may be, so.
Okay. Well, I will be happy to.
Put together this most something in terms of.
I will do that.
What's coming.
Yes. So except like we have timeline for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things, so this appeared on our September 23 resolution. We prioritized 9 items, many of which have been ticked off, but that holistic review with understanding where your plans are dovetailing with Army Corps and really hearing what Gloria Farrell was saying, right? And how, what is the relationship to their plans to your plans? If you could give us more on that. And of course, the state DOT plans that we keep hearing about.
Would we have more information?
I was looking at your file thinking, I can't believe you're gonna tell me something more, but that's critical. That's number 1, and it is number 1 on our resolution. The need for the walking front of the site, you know, that was something we'd asked for now over a year.
We keep walking towards that.
No, of the Northwest Battery Park
We keep
City.
walking towards that side of that.
No, of the north, I mean, the most recent plan, let's say that.
Oh, okay, that's different, because I just didn't, we did give walking tours.
Of the Northwest.
The Northwest, we did it in October.
But did you do the whole?
I did the whole thing, yeah.
And I asked her, I'm taking walking tours because I noted this as something that I think that.
No, which is fine, but just to be clear,
Okay.
I think we'll see it.
I feel like we did, there was many parts that were, a little bit of that was missing. I shouldn't have been clear. You're absolutely right. You did, but there were.
We split the times, what we do is we split the times because one tour is like 2 hours, so I think we split the times just so we can spend more time like doing sections, but we can talk, it's fine.
Yeah.
Claudia, aren't the tours now a bit different because the changes from Reach 1 and 2 have changed since the tour times? Because now you're on the east side of West Street.
Since we gave them last time, that's accurate, but again, like, I just wanted to be clear, like, we did give them last time.
Yeah, it's not us not doing the tour for that, it's when you read of the tours.
Okay, whatever. I just don't remember being told, but I think you're probably right. We did, I just updated, I guess.
Okay.
The need to better understand the plan's impact on traffic patterns, parking, pedestrian, bikers, different times of day, inclusive of providing data and future projections. I'm not sure if we received that. It was.
You'll see in terms of like draft, like, we'll have some traffic data. I think you're talking more about MPT plans, which is like something we walk through on the south in like great detail. Which we won't have that for a little bit, but we are working on pedestrian and cyclist circulation. We have some preliminary things we could probably share in the interim.
Great, that would be great. So, okay, prior to, please remember that. Let me just go through here. The tree impact table at the meeting, for me, was very unclear, but in fairness, I didn't have a lot of time to spend with it, because I had, race it to the room to hear the presentation. But I think we were looking for a definitive estimate of the trees removed in the entirety of the project. I just saw one Reach 4, as noted, having 25 trees removed and certain much smaller ones. But I think at this point in the game, we should just get that piece of information. Okay. And we have to ask for it now.
We'll have the tree impact table, so we can.
Yeah.
I think I've got mine, actually.
Find 4, and I don't know why that is,
I
so.
will make sure that it's on the direct link to your.
All
But
7.
we have that information for the entirety of the project.
Yeah, so, and with the sort of total of how many were removed. Okay, great. That lands for a lot of people's interest. Then I don't know where we went with this, which you heard a lot about, the urging of the variance from the United States Army Corps of 15 with vegetation visa, which
we've addressed that several times in meetings. I mean, I think we can provide this, the written response we provide, but we have responded to this in public meetings.
I think though, I don't actually think that the public, what we have been told as a public that that you can't get a variance for the entire project. And the questions came back were specific areas that people were looking for individual variances for sections to be able to lower wall heights or have less disturbance. We've never actually gotten any confirmed answer whether or not any variances in any particular section were going to be sought. And that's what we had asked. We understand that the whole project can't be a variance. I mean, I get that, but the question was in what areas in order to lower the walls, would it be possible and would BPCA be willing to have that dialogue? I don't ever remember seeing that.
I would just be clear and to say that, like, you probably didn't, but like, it wouldn't lower the walls, but it would actually lower the number of removals we would have to do. Like, I just want to be clear, like, it lowers the number of removals we have to do. I would say it's on a tree by tree basis. I think we are taking a look at it, but I think we probably circle back with our team in terms of like definitive timing on that. But we have had conversations about it because we know that it's something that's come up again multiple times about specific locations in particular. So we can get back to you on that. That's a response we can provide to.
Okay, and we'll jot all the stuff, but.
Yeah, no, but it's helps, again, to get clarity on things like that. Like, I appreciate it because again, more information we have, the better.
Then we need to schedule the meeting that you did promise to review the details of the flood barrier system materials with a presentation on deployment and maintenance and inclusive of details of areas between the proposed flood barrier systems and the existing building wall lines, like what happens in those areas. Those were all things that were in earlier, basically Steep word, I guess. Details of the preliminary, and to include that swing gates, the 50-foot roller gates in front of Lily Pond, the slide up gates, and how they're deployed, a little more information. The one that's at South End Avenue, I'm just using examples, this isn't in the resolution, but I just want to give you examples for people who want to know what exactly, to give us any more, and also the walls themselves. Is there any more information in terms of their material and what they're gonna look like, and, all of that?
In terms of wall material, we've heard a lot from people, I think, in terms of like working on wall material. So we are revisiting those discussions. In terms of, can I just be clear, just in terms of like deployment of the deployables? Do you mean just sort of what it looks like when they're in a deployed, similar to what the MCR showed, like in a deployed condition as opposed to like a non-deployed condition?
That would be
Or like, are
very
you looking for?
helpful, like even with theirs, we have no idea how high those things are.
Right, so like a sort of a closed condition, as opposed to an open condition, like what an every single day condition looks like as opposed to when it's being tested.
That would be great.
Okay, I just want to, yeah, if you could, if it's helpful in the resolution, or like supplemental, if you could just provide like sort of the level of detail you guys are looking for, I think we probably can pull together materials on that. But it's helpful to have that level of clarity, like what exactly you want to see. And I mean, in terms of like O&M, like how we exercise them.
Yeah, I think people want to know, what are these things gonna look like? How do they work? How are they gonna be maintained? That's pretty much it. And how are you gonna avoid the problems and pitfalls of the ones that already exist on the east side, where the graffiti, like what, is there something that someone's cleverly come up with that's going to make these things not become billboards for, graphics, which might very well be the next thing, I don't know. I know a lot of people talk about adding some sort of
coding or
landscaping, which I know wasn't possible because we would optimize the wall, but, there's a lot of time that goes on between these meetings, but I think maybe things could develop. There's another approach that could be taken, So that's a meeting. It's just on the deployables and the materials. And then we asked for a modeling of the floodplain or simulation of the floodplain showing the Northwest Battery Park City project in the context of Tribeca north of Chambers Street to the south side of Canal Street.
Yeah. Did we have those? We have that one.
Okay, check, all right, get that, that was one. And then we had a presentation, which could happen on the art tour, on the walking tour of the selection and location of the proposed art in the Northwest Battery Park City plans. It was a little bit unclear, like just a art plan. And we asked for that, and then details how the northern and southern regions connect, including showing the pump house area in much more detail at Stuyvesant Plaza.
Yeah, I mean, that design is truthfully ongoing in consultation with DEP, so we will not have something just to be clear, it's on a parallel, a different design timeline. So we will be coming to you with more detail and design on the pump station, but we have to have like many more conversations with DEP on like what that looks like. I know there's a lot of questions we got early on about the above ground expression, what that looks like. We're sort of having those technical conversations now. But we will come back when we have more clarity as to like what that looks like. We're really dealing with like, we can show you the same thing we showed you, whatever that was a few months ago, that's just like the outline of what the footprint looks like in that marginal street work replace, because that's sort of still where we are, because there's all the technical sort of reason. But yeah, it'll be a little bit before you. That's we have to come down.
I'd say this is all.
Yeah, no, but in terms of timing, because you had asked sort of about what timing looks like.
Yeah,
that's where we are now.
Then the question that I already asked about the Institute of Sustainability, Infrastructure, Sustainable Infrastructure, the Ambition program, and if you were using it, how you were using it, why or why not you were using it. And I thought Bushman was really gave a very good answer to that, or a good reason for it. And then with the point the town.
You put that in the resolution?
Yes, I mean, you're not wanting to, what, do you disagree?
Say it
with
again,
that?
Alice, slower.
Oh.
It was hard to understand you, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't write it yet, but a description as to if they were going to be using the envisioned framework as presented by the Institute of Sustainability used in the battery, for example, And if not, why not? You know, and a little bit of a description of what it is they're sustaining, specifically material wise. More information on that. Okay? And then the other one was something that we all bring up a lot, to Tammy. You know, the feeling that there's still too much concrete that, you know, which is a very, you know, carbon unfriendly material. Is there some other way that this can be reduced in terms of the amount we see in the seating? And I would love to have a better understanding of where there is wood versus concrete. It's very difficult. I understood the, as you call it, the World's Fair. That's right. Which World's Fair, but it's very unclear. You see certain pieces of concrete, then you see some with wood on top, and it's a little unclear the whole bench situation.
Yeah, and we're working on refinements of that right now, so we will have more to share on that.
Oh, good. And then we call some of it sculptural seating and some not, and I don't understand what makes it sculptural, if it's not, that should be clarified. And, you know, when the feeling about too much concrete, I think you really see it on one of your drawings where it's called the forest, it's on the south esplanade. And, you know, it so feels like it's not, it's this wall of concrete and then a few trees. So I just guess, you know, I would underline that is there some way to soften these and make these areas more, you know, natural. I don't know, but that.
We're looking at, again, I think we're looking at, as we're in the 60% phase, we're looking at wall materiality, wall treatment and what that could look like. So I think there'll be more to see on that, but we're literally having those conversations right now.
And then also on green infrastructure in terms of the forest papers and rain gardens, we're having a sort of, you know, smaller type resilient green infrastructure that I was trying to talk about earlier with, you know, just what are you doing in terms of, I don't know, are there a lot of rain gardens? Are there other types of resilient features? What are we doing to
Talk about it in the public meeting too, but yeah, we have information on that.
Okay, and then how is the project dealing with heat impact and cloudburst? I don't think we ever had a real conversation about that.
Yeah, that's part of the interior drainage. It's part of the drainage, but also in terms of urban heat island, we can talk about that in terms of the type. We were addressing ground planting and things like that.
I just think it's something that we haven't really heard about. Critically important about doing it.
I mean, we've talked about it in other public meetings we've had, but I mean, maybe it's just about providing more detail.
I think that's what I'm saying. No, I'm not saying it hasn't been ever talked about.
Yeah, but more detail as we have it.
Yeah, in the, we should 60%. And then I'm almost done with my points that we were supposed to make. So Pump House Park, I wasn't sure what the committee and the board will feel about which option. Was that still open to us? Option one, which you call flat program versus the sunken lawn, option two. Is that something that's been selected?
No, we presented both meetings at both options of the public meeting to get feedback. So
Does
we
anyone,
welcome your feedback.
does anyone feel strongly about this? Do you know what we're talking about for Pump House Park?
I think the issue of keeping the original designer's intent for Pump House Park was the priority. That it was about having, the drainage was already fixed, so it wasn't about the drainage, and it wasn't about opening it to have it be public, to be able to, I think somebody said that Brookfield wanted to host gym classes there. And that's completely not what the park was designed to be. The original design of Battery Park City included a respite from the concrete environment surrounding it. It was not supposed to be open. It was supposed to be a natural feeling place of stepping away from the hubbub. And that priority is what I heard about, not necessarily. It shouldn't be a commercialized asset. It's supposed to be a park.
That's in line.
What does that mean in terms of the options? I think that means we prefer option one to option two, but I'm not, I throw that out. And I'm also wondering whether this is also something we should address to the Battery Park City Committee, since there's a lot of Battery Park City residents on that.
I'm happy to put that in. Once you take that one, then you can do more work with it and have pictures and everything at your next meeting. I think that's a good idea.
I think you do need to comment, Alice, on the resiliency parts of it, because there's a massive amount of trees that are being removed there. And again, the question started to become about where my variances are leading into. And there were trees being removed not only on the far west side, but also on the south side, going all the way up towards Gateway.
I do know we're talking, and I remember, I actually thought it was option 2, which was the sunken law that was being the one that was promoted, but I think those questions could all be done, because it is an open space question, which I think is part of Justine's looking at. I would think it's gonna be less.
It's a resiliency waiver request for you, is what I'm saying.
Well, I don't think it's a resiliency waiver issue. There's the bridging structure that's the limiting thing there, and I don't think we're going to get any waiver on the bridging structure.
Space, yeah, exactly. If I can throw my 2 cents in, listening to them presented and looking at their slides, there's an option 1 and there's an option 2, both of which I think try to address the concern about keeping it private. I think we need, in my opinion, we need to let the Battery Park City community, let alone the committee, weigh in as to which option they prefer. One is the sunken lawn, and then one is the with new trees put in, and the other one is going to be and a berm and seating on the other side. And the other option is just kind of putting it back the way it was with shrubs. And they're not going to put the trees because they can't put them, as Jeff just said, they can't put them back where they were because of the underneath wall that they have to build. So I don't think. I think the only issue is the sunken lawn going to create a drainage problem.
Justine, I'm sorry to interrupt, because I see everybody's grabbing their bags.
We have to, yeah, we have to run, so.
And I
questions,
wanna-
I don't know if there are
Yeah, I want to close this at 9. The only other thing that I had in the list was just that, and this is a scheduling thing, that this idea of going across 9A as your first thing that you're doing, you know, that you had.
Oh, like the construction.
Yeah, this makes no sense to me at all, and I would put in the resolution and ask for committee support that to start with the area that has all the confluence, state, city, and federal government at that particular juncture where we really want to research, where we, as a board, have been on record saying we really want to look at this more carefully, and have you start there. Respectfully, doesn't make much sense to me.
We can argue it, but when that second is done, it also has independent utility and can act as a lock. Also, it has the most utilities. And also the work can only take place at night along 9A, which are all restrictions, which push out the timeline, which means getting started earlier means get done with very complicated work earlier.
Well, let's
still not early, but again,
let's just say this, it would be nice to know the answer to the question of what is state DOT doing? How is the Army Corps responding to all of these plans? As part of the answer that you just gave, that would be great.
Sure.
Okay, I don't know if you have time, but you're heading out. Okay, they go in. All right, well,
but thank you for, again.
thank you guys a lot. They have to go, so, Justine, you've got a whole nother entire meeting on this, so.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you, Claudia. Claudia, are you going to come to our meeting? I don't know that you were planning to.
Claudia.
I will have to check if I can. I know Nick will be there, but I'll have to check and see if I can make it, or if somebody else from our team can make it, Justine, if that's helpful.
Yeah, me and some combination.
Yeah, some combination of our team.
It may be helpful to hear the discussion.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah,
great.
no.
Sorry. So
I don't wanna
sorry.
commit and then have to be like, just kidding, Justine, my schedule is a mess, I can't do it, so I just wanted to.
This is not what we're discussing, you're not, this is different.
You know, understood.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much, buddy. Okay, so-
Alice,
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
yes, another issue that I was thinking that may be appropriate for Battery Park City Committee is on the lower, the Esplanade, the lower half of the Esplanade by the southern half of Battery Park City. The plans call for the upper walkway to be somewhat more secluded from the lower walkway than is currently present. And I think it would be important to hear what Battery Park City people think about that. I see pros and cons. It's more isolated, so maybe it's less likely to have bicycle riders through it. But on the other hand, right now, if you see somebody that you want to avoid on one level, you can easily move to the other level, whether it's a dog you want to avoid or some person that you don't want to see or some person you're afraid of or whatever. And I don't have a view one way or the other, but I suspect that people who frequent that area do have views of it. So sort of.
Great. I think you're dealing with all those open space issues and any one of these issues should be repeated. I don't think we picked that up in this resolution yet. Did we mention something that's contrary to what you'd like to do on the resolution? We'll do it Battery Park City.
Okay. Jeff, can I add a little, can I add?
No,
on to
sorry,
Jeff?
but I'm saying, you just get Jeff's answer to that question so I know.
Your question again, Alice?
My understanding is there's something that we're doing here in this resolution that counters what you're saying that you could do in the resolution.
Oh, no, I just didn't, I just wanted to make sure that if we deal with it there, you don't, in retrospect, say, no, that's something you should have brought up at environmental rather than BPC.
Absolutely, no, take it, perfect. Okay, Wendy, sorry, go ahead. Good to
Yeah,
see you.
so Jeff, you triggered my remembrance that a lot of those design features in that upper level is designed to save trees. You know, it kind of does a wiggle and does some sort of, you know, it's not as much of a straight line. It saves some of the older trees. And I just think that that does have an environmental compact or impact to, you know, when we're explaining it, it's not just, it's designed as to impart.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I can see from it.
That was something that came up. So when you're discussing it, I just think that that's one of the things that we have to really acknowledge, that there's a real emphasis that we heard in the last meeting that some of these kind of strange alignments are to save the roots of the trees. And the other thing that I really remember from the meeting was a couple things. Was one, I think we should acknowledge that the Rockefeller Park is going to be open the entire duration. There's going to be access to Rockefeller.
That's the next reso. The public space reso is this one is just about.
Okay, so that's fine. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. I'm coming at it. The other piece of the environmental piece is that the one woman who commented about the noise and air quality that she's suffering from across the street from the construction of Wagner. I think that we need to acknowledge that it's going to be, you know, it's construction. It's, you know, whatever.
That's also Battery Park City. This is just about the resiliency choices in environmental protection.
Right, but I was just thinking on from an environmental point of view that that's air quality and things like that. So it's fine if it's in Battery Park. That definitely comes along. Thank you.
Right. I'm happy to put it in twice, but I don't know. I think that we've been very careful to divide these two. I don't know why, but I mean, I do know why, but I don't know that it matters.
You can put that in both without a doubt, because Wendy's talking about not only the timing and things like that, but the environmental impact. You know, it's.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a really good.
Yeah, I had a feeling, you know, the woman was saying, she really spoke at length about, you know, about the impact. And I thought that the response from the Battery Park community was, yes, this is going to have a major impact on everyone. But I think that I think it can't be said enough. Like it's going to be painful for everyone, even if it's needed. Even if
we need maximum mitigation. I mean,
yeah.
Some of it's unavoidable, but there are mitigation measures that can and should be taken.
Correct. I think the answer is we don't want to, we want to say, okay, if we accept that we need this, we have to accept that this is going to be very painful for all involved.
Okay.
Mitigation for what?
They want to have
Noise, dust.
of the impacts of construction and demolition during the whole period with demolition and construction. I'd love to get out. It's 9 o'clock as soon as we can. So we're almost. I mean, I've gone over all the points that I thought we could include in the resolution vis-a-vis what we've already said. And then if you have others for this resolution, take it away. Oh, Justine, go ahead.
Just want to make one comment, Alice, and then Jeff and Wendy and Tammy either weigh in if this is it. Part of one of the resolutions that came out of the Battery Park City Committee was talking about the trees and the concrete. And I noticed you mentioned the level of concrete and you mentioned the south. If you're talking about the precast concrete benches, we're on the same page. If you're talking about more greenery than what they've got in the south, we're not. And I want us to be careful there. Because yeah, I hate those precast concrete benches, and I know exactly what you're talking about the idea of a wall and how it comes up that way. And so I just would say, I don't know about if it's be careful. I don't know. We can you know what I mean? Just be careful and maybe have different options in there. And it's not that I have to say it in our committee, but I don't want to come out contradicting you.
Yeah, I think the way I said it was to describe, to give us a clear sense of the seating, how much concrete seating there is, what.
You were very
diplomatic.
Seating, okay, good. If you kept it to seating, you're perfect. Yes, that's perfect.
Alice, can I ask?
John, do you want to say something?
No.
Okay, go ahead, Tammy, take it away. Final comments, yes.
One of the only other things that I wanted to add in the resiliency as an overview, which of course everybody knows, is that we want to ensure that we're not losing as space in the playground. And Rockefeller came up a lot of times to maximize whether waivers were possible, whatever the key is, to maximize the space, that we're not losing parkland space, even if it's a foot here or a foot there, because they will be redoing all of Rockefeller Park, even the children's area. So that was a big thing to put in about the resiliency measures for that area. And on the intersections of the streets to the Esplanade, there, I assume that the Battery Park City Committee will take up the change in usages. So for example, resiliency, they still say, even though the upper room is at street level and sidewalk level, or a step up, that can't be saved. But the change in the use to something that was programmable should be in Battery Park City Committee. But I think in resiliency things, any and all art that is beloved, that has been requested to be saved, that can be saved or reinstated, if possible, would be great. I mean, you know, that resiliency should not
Take that away or destroy it. Yeah, that makes sense. And it may be reiterated again, but that makes sense.
It's good. I think that's a Justine issue. It's about the public spaces and what's in them. But yeah, I hear you. Yeah, obviously we want to maximize the benefits. Okay, I think we're at the end with one more comment from Richard Corman.
Yes. So, I think it's appropriate in this resolution to incorporate what, get her name, but.
Claudia?
No. At the end of the table, talking about ensuring that preserving materials, recycling, maximizing recycling, holding vendors, contractors accountable for what they're required to do in that regard. The envision part of it is certainly a part of that, but I think it goes beyond that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I had mentioned.
Their points were really excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I like the holding the vendors accountable. That's a good one. Anything else? Did you have something, Jen? We're just not gesticulating. You're frustrated.
No, what happens is there is a northern part, but you know what, I think it's all the conversation gets to Battery Park, and we have a lot of personalities that's strong in Battery Park, and I'm like the only person that represents the north, which is Independence Plaza, that's facing this. I don't know if you're facing this, you're a little bit more north.
All right, but I'm north.
Okay, so, you know, it got a lot involved, which this is later than that. A lot didn't need to Battery Park, which one could have stayed in Battery Park, and, you know, we could have streamlined our environmental a little bit more, because it's already 10 after 9 and we haven't gotten to the resolution. So I'd like to.
Brett, your points of the resolution were done,
Okay.
except that we're happy to add your point if everyone votes on it, which is, I'm just not clear on that.
No, well, I wanted questions to answer about it, but I never.
At this, well,
Right. Well, you know, there is problems like with the drainage that is in our part, which is also in their part, but I haven't been able to study it and I haven't been able to look at this as good as Jeff has with Gateway. Because he has a whole committee. But, the thing is, you know, there are problems and things that people are interested in. And, you know, I don't have anything to put in.
but do you want to have say where you would like that there's more information given on how the plans affect? the
Well, you
drainage
know, I did hear that it's, you know, it's coming, the drainage situation. And I think, but, you know, I would want more detail of the north, you know, there's a lot of our concentration.
John, can I make a suggestion? Why don't we share everything about Reach One from the last, or why don't you take, if you have an opportunity, I believe they're all listed on the Battery Park City Authority's website. And they've done 3 presentations of Reach, quote unquote, Reach One, which is the part that wraps around IPN, into Reach Two, which is the part that is the very top of Chambers Street. And so, and if you need help, I'm sure Alice or I'd be happy to go through some of that stuff with you, or Nick would, because he's, you know, certainly the expert. They've done specific to that. We've asked many times because we also sit on the Hudson River Park Advisory Council for separate presentations on that. So take a look at the website, and if you and Nick, since you're sitting near each other, can connect, he can walk you through all of those. If there's any specific things that you'd like to make a friendly amendment at the full board, this is the time to do that without a doubt. Okay, John? So if you need a little bit of help and time to catch up, let's do that for you.
Yeah, John, let's connect. There's also, as a primer, it's helpful to you, last October 23, we actually here, and we did an interior drainage update, which was a very low conversation, and I'll say thank you for hosting us then as well.
Yeah.
That is not entirely reflective of where we are today, but in terms of getting you caught up from like a layman perspective, where we are, it certainly helped me understand a little bit more, so let me connect with you and then I'll get you the information.
Thanks very
And then
much.
I'll get you my-
See that as well.
Yeah.
All right, so I think, without further ado, if somebody wants, I am suggesting this as a resolution of the points that I read. If there's things you want to remove or you don't agree with, speak now. Otherwise, do I have a second on this that we've just reviewed, all the points? Okay, we get a second. Do we get to vote? By affirmation, okay. Anybody not want this resolution, opposed to the resolution? Anyone abstaining? So, and online, we've got no abstentions, no opposition. Up.
No, I was voting in favor.
So it looks like it's a unanimous yes? Yes? Yes. Okay. Thank you all who stuck it out so much. It was a long night, but we got through it. And great, well, you know, I think this is our last meeting for the summer. You'll be happy to know.
What?
Last meeting with them.
Our last,
This meeting is.
so we'll see you in September. The fund goes, we'll have the resolution in the full board, and I really appreciate it.
You guys, take care. Stay cool.